travel for a while. I don't mind. I think my Windows. That's a win. We're live. What's up, chat? How we doing tonight? Happy, what is it, like Thursday? Happy Thursday night, or middle of the night if you're in the the other side of the pond. I highly doubt the EU folks are gonna be watching. A little late today. I do start the streams when I can. Sup, Bonchi? I will just keep working on where we left. Like, I'll pick up directly from where we left off yesterday. So I'll just give a bit of an overview. I don't want to waste any time. I'm planning to work at least 4 hours on this thing tonight. So I'm going to show you guys what we had, where we left off, where we're going. And there's a good chance that today will be the day, right? Today will be the day where we'll finally get the feature. Unless something happens like last time where there was just a deal breaker that shows up at the finish line, and then we just have to do it again. But I think this one's pretty good. It's just 1:30 a.m. It's all good. You good? All right, we're gonna bring you guys over here. Just give me a sec. That's supposed to bring you guys over here. Like, no, we don't. No, we don't do. Okay. I guess we don't do these. Ah, there you go. Hey, what's up? All right. I'm just gonna log in, and we're gonna start working right away. I'm not gonna stretch the intro here. Yeah. Incorrect password. What's going on today? What's going on today? Can't even type Nicholas in my window. I think this is the earliest I've ever been to the stream. Nice, good shit. It's actually one of the later ones in terms of, so maybe that there's a correlation there. Maybe it's just because I'm starting starting later and you're just at the same time. Wait, has it ended? No, it has not ended. We're good. We're good. Yeah, so the feature is still not shipped exactly. Oh yeah, we were looking at that stuff yesterday because I did have a few middle mouse button to paste on Linux woes, but we kind of overcame that. At least like I moved on from that. I'm just gonna close a few tabs before we get started. Yeah, but the feature's starting to look good. Definitely starting to look good. I did have to stop because I was gonna go. I was about to go on the podcast, the Brain Lights podcast. But I'm gonna be able to resume. Like we have this function that we wrote. Like one of the last functions that we wrote yesterday was to merge frames and keyboard events. So what I'm working on right now is a feature to record, or at least like I'm trying my best to come up with a feature to record player inputs, like as a general type of thing, and not just like from a specific game, but just from any game. Record like at least keyboard inputs right now. Maybe if we get the keyboard stuff working fine today, we can take a look at the mouse stuff again, see if it's still seg faults on my machine. I don't think it's going to be the case because there's probably been some development on that library since then, the mouse one. But yeah, so essentially like the main game agent, when we put it in the recording mode, what it does is it's in charge of capturing the frames and storing them. Right, so it's capturing pipelines, frames that have been captured by the grabber, put through a frame transformation pipeline. That gets put into memory, and then the main like game agent's job is just to keep fetching stuff from that active buffer in memory, and just like storing it in memory. There's a second process that starts that's responsible for the logging of the key presses, right? The recording of the input. And that works totally separately, right? So that works totally separately. It's going to be recording all the key presses in that game. And then at the end, when we focus out of the game, when we click outside of the game window, that triggers a callback in our, yeah. You had the mouse seg fault too on, that's bad stuff. Not good. I see, by the way, I'm actually using the merging in the end. I think it's the best approach. It's gonna work better. I did not finish or anything. The merging itself, I think I got down, but we didn't really like finish the entire thing yesterday. But merging is definitely the way. So sad stuff. If the mouse still seg faults, that's gonna be bad news. I might have to just ship with the keyboard. Yeah, and essentially like when we focus out of the game, like I said, like now we're just gonna be reconciling the frames with, or merging, if you will, the frames with the other stuff that we collected in the other process. Try to like sort them, merge them in order by the timestamp, and from there, try to like go through that sequence of events and just with our own logic build the static data set, like the static data file. Yeah, the mouse seg fault is, well, any seg fault is always sort of frustrating. On both sides, right? Because if I do get like a seg fault as a user, I could report it. It's frustrating because I have no other information, right? So it's just like, oh well, I'm fucked. There's nothing I can do. But it's also frustrating for the developer because how do you even, like, if someone opens I don't know, like an issue on your GitHub or something, and it says like, I got a seg fault when using this function. It's just like, okay, well, anything else? Well, no, that's all we get. We only get seg faults. Like, we don't really know. So it's a tough one. I don't know if it's like updating something eventually, like one of the libs, like in the, like with the system, or if it's gonna have to be this specific library that we're using that's gonna have to do something. But if IC got it yesterday, that's not good news. That is not good news. Okay, so once we merge this, well, we're gonna go over, like I said, the series of items, or the pieces of data, be they frame buffers or keyboard presses. And based on what we see at the time we see with the current state, we're going to be building out that static file. So that's mostly what we're going to be doing today. I don't anticipate a lot of obstacles for this one. Famous last words, I know, but I think we'll be fine. I think we'll be fine. We've been working on this for like almost like 7 streams. Of course, like most of the other streams were spent on the first approach, which did not end up panning out. But still, like I think it's we got the concepts down. I don't think we're gonna be stuck today. We're gonna be getting stuck. All right, so I'm gonna resume from here. So we do have the merging function fleshed out. We got that out yesterday before I ended the stream. We did get that. It's not being used anywhere, so we need to flesh out our recording stuff here before we do anything else. So I started by pausing, telling the input recorder process to pause, at least for now. Maybe it's gonna be stop eventually. We'll figure out what we want to do, but stop, like ignore basically everything that comes in. Like you don't want to do that. You don't want to like keep registering and processing stuff that comes in, because technically we're out of the game. We're not focused on the game anymore. We're not looking to log key presses that are pressed outside of the game. Okay, so keyboard press, keyboard events is definitely a collection. So we did have a bit of this function in a nicer state yesterday, but I did have a like the middle mouse like paste thingy that we had. I totally fucked up the file, so I had to rescue some functions and then just do a git, like checkout on this file. So I might have lost a bit for this one, but we can just rebuild it. It's really not the end of the world. The keyboard events are going to be a list, and then instead of printing the pickle.loads, we're going to be appending them to this. Now they are already ordered because it's a list in Redis that acts as a queue, and you can kind of control like from which side you insert, from which side you read. So I can make it so the first item I read is the first item that got inserted in the list, right? So we're going to do keyboard. Now, if you have any questions, like as usual, I know like it still bears repeating. Just ask. Just ask. Like seriously, you're not in like I think the biggest thing I've seen over time with programming chats on Twitch is people are kind of like afraid to interrupt a bit. But that's the name of the game, really. Like if you're streaming programming on Twitch, like the entire reason is to have that sort of interaction and answering questions, so that there's no need to be scared of interrupting anything, All right, so we're gonna be appending the pickle loads of the lpop from Redis. We are controlling how many keys are in there. Like we're basically counting the keys first to make sure that no like operation whatever like changes anything after that. So we're gonna be popping out exactly this amount of key. Because the other approach for this, like that I've seen, that I may have done in the past, I've seen other people do with Redis. It's a little different. It's just like say, just do a while true here and wait until beep boop. Hey, dope bot, which is essentially dope. Thank you for that, dude. Thank you for that. Beep boop and dude. Nice one, dope bot. Thanks for interrupting, dope bot. Like I do appreciate the support, dope bot, but it kind of interrupted my my train of thought. You're moving. Is it happening for real, dude? Is it happening? Because this is sick if it is. And if you wanna share with chat, because it's fucking awesome, dude. If it's happening. All right. Oh yeah, no, I was just explaining. Now I gotta say yes, but you just said I'm moving, so I'm gonna guess this is a yes. I'm gonna guess this is a yes. If you just said I'm moving, I'm gonna assume it's a yes, dude. So congrats, first of all, even if you decide to change your mind. I just need to decide first if I want to move to a tropical paradise to work. It's gonna take me a couple of weeks to like process the information. Damn. Hey, he's making himself desirable on top of that. Like, I'm gonna get. Well, no, actually, it's actually pretty reasonable. Like, to be honest, like, it is. Like, anyone that's just like, fuck yeah. Anyone that's just like, yeah, but let's do it. Like, sign me up, bro. Like, that's a bit of a red flag. Like, yeah, it's a big decision. It's a big event. I don't want to share it for you, but and we're talking about this. I don't want to alienate anyone. but essentially, I think Dove's going to end up moving a bit across the world, a little more to the south, for a job. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to say anything else about it, but I think it's a cool thing. And yes, it's a big decision, right? To move this far. Essentially, your whole life is just going to be like, well, affected by that. So the fact that you say like I'm going to take some time to think over it, like I think it shows a bit of maturity, right? It's not that bad. All right, so we have our events. That's how I was getting them, and I was just explaining that some stuff I've seen people do before here is just like not like they, like I said, do a wild true and just keep popping until you get like a none. But there's a bit of an issue with this, because if other stuff, for example, let's say we don't run this line because we didn't, like, I don't know, we don't have like the foresight to do this. The input recorder is going to keep putting some stuff in there. So if you do a wild true and you're just popping out stuff of the list until you see a none, there's potentially a chance, right? There's a bit of a chance that well, this is never going to return, because if you're appending in the list as like faster than you process the items with the pop. Right, so it's just a better practice to say like at this point in time I'm gonna read out like I'm gonna know that there are that many items, and I'm gonna go and just like do these like that many that amount of operations. So I'm not relying on the none to break out of the loop. I'm just saying I'm gonna do it X amount of times. That's it. All right. All right, so I have the events. That was good. Then I was able to extract the data from that, right? So the data was going to be self._, and we haven't tested the function, so that's probably the first thing we'll do. There is an underscore merge frames and keyboard events, and I had to pass in keyboard events because that's not something that's in the instance variable scope. So keyboard events like this. And if this function works, we were pretty much at that stage yesterday, so I think we're done with the recap. Like I needed to test if our merging according to timestamps of two collections was working fine, essentially. Yeah. So let's stop there, maybe, and just print out the data to see if it even works. Chances are there is like a bit of a, like a typo or something. So we're gonna calm down a bit. Print data. Okay, cool. So let's rebuild. Oh, Cannibalt is not running. Let's start with that. Okay, so rebuild the egg, and here I'm gonna launch. The reason it's not running is just because I'm sharing it. It's my Steam account, and if I don't close the game on this box, Steam will log me out, and then I have to log back in, and the next I don't want to do that, so I just close the game, and it makes Steam perfectly happy. So launch Serpent launch Cannibalt like this, right? So that's launching. Oh, we have some weird bullshit in there. I don't know how that ended up there. Probably some middle mouse. Like, look at this. What is this? Where is this coming from? God damn it. All right. So I'm gonna have to rebuild the package. Otherwise, it's just gonna keep saying there's a syntax error there. Okay. Are you fucking with me, dude? Late 397. Oh, it's the indent. So I added a space by accident. God damn. I'm not even using this function. It's just that it's going through the file and looking for syntax errors. You're back to doing supervised learning. Well, I'm still finishing up the recording thing. So there was a first attempt, or a first like solution, or prototype that I had in mind. But there were obvious flaws. Well, obvious. They became obvious eventually. So I don't think they were obvious flaws. But as I was closing out the feature, I was kind of dissatisfied because it was really, really complicated, and also there was a pretty major flaw in the sense that while it was running the code to handle the frames and the key presses, because it used to do it like at runtime, I was not capturing keys. So the longer the code block grew that was outside of the blocking that was capturing the keys, the more of a chance I had to miss some inputs. So what I ended up doing is creating a totally separate process for the input recorder that is not blocked, right? So all it does is capture keys. That's it, right? That's it, right? All right, let's do this again. Oh, I didn't. Did I not read out this thing? There you go. All right, we got it. All right, so why am I launching the game through this and not like Steam or anything? Just because I have some callbacks in the framework, so I can do some stuff like bypass the launcher, for example. Because you did see there was a bit of a window, and I can handle this in my callbacks. And once this is done, it will actually just return. It's in the right place. It will kind of just like make sure it can find the window, put it at the top left like this, and then we can try our recording. And essentially, it's gonna the recording itself right now is fine. It's in a good place. Then we're just trying to merge the data and prepare the data and transform the data so that it can fit in that binary packed file. Why do you use Python? Well, why do you do anything in life, really? Python's just a good, like, when I set out to build this thing, I was of course like looking to build something that could be used by other people. Like, I did not set out, like it's kind of weird to explain. I did not set out to build this thing explicitly, but when it became clear that I was gonna ship it out as a library, I wanted to use something that you know, like essentially people's eyes were on, and Python for machine learning, and you know, like AI research and everything. It's actually pretty much where it's at, like it or not. So that's why I'm using Python for this project. Essentially, it's a tool that does the job, right? Is it the best tool? That's totally subjective. I don't really encourage people like waste their energy debating that sort of shit. If it's a tool that does the job, you're not shooting yourself in the foot, essentially. Well, there you go, right? Like, so why even waste energy on that? Like, just use your tool that you're happy with, and it kind of works, you know? Yeah, exactly, right, Ian. That's it. Like, C bindings, and I've never pretended like here that Python is the one that's doing the heavy lifting. We all know the truth there. It's mostly like C++ libraries that we're wrapping, and Python allows like orchestrating these things. Well, I don't know what sort of answer you're looking for, Anchi, for real. Because it's accessible. That's because that's where it's at. Like what else can I say? Like that's where the machine learning and stuff is at. Like this is the language that people use like mostly out there. Of course, the power tools are built with C and C++ and everything, but machine learning and AI right now, if you do Python, like you're definitely gonna have like a lot of tools available to you, because that's where all the attention is. Right, so it's kind of like a critical mass type of thing. So if there's enough people paying attention to something, well, it's more likely that people are going to do even more libraries and use that thing. So once you pass that critical mass, this is what happens, right? So this is sort of why I use that, and also because I knew it was a perfectly fine tool to do it. I was going to be able to do what I wanted fast enough with this stuff, right? I would love to see someone do something like this in like C++ and see how far they get. Like, not the orchestration of something this big, all in C++. I would love to see that. And if you want to do it, if you're like, yeah, just fucking stream it, yo. I want to see it. Nah, because Python simplifies. Yeah, so it is easily accessible indeed. It will simplify like the orchestrating of larger systems together, and that's something we need to do with bigger problems like this. All right, so sudo serpent record Canabalt. All right, Canabalt, and gotta go. Good luck. All right, peace, man. Serpent record Canabalt, and with the Serpent Cannibal game agent. I don't need to pass really anything else. And then, like I said, the recording should work pretty much out of the box. I'm gonna try to take it to the game. Eventually, it's gonna tell me to play the game when it starts, and that's where I'll start recording the key presses. So I can just like, there's a bit of a lag at the beginning like this, which is really scary. Somehow I didn't die, but once it's running, and there's no real hitches or anything. And right now it is collecting that information, right? So whatever I'm doing right now, it's seeing the frames, it's seeing the key presses, and I can just focus on playing the game, you know, like the best I can to build that data set. Fix the time issue? Which one? Which one? What's up, Elijah? Fuck. All right, let's pretend this is it, and this is gonna trigger. This is the part that's important. Is when I focus out, because that's where my pause handler kicks in. So the framework detects when you're losing focus on that game window, and it's able to run some code, right? So I'm using that as my opportunity to build a data set. So I'm gonna click out. I'm gonna stop being scared. I'm gonna click out of there and see what happens. Right? I'm expecting a failure, but maybe not. Maybe not. I don't know why we're printing. Now, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what we got. We didn't get a crash. Well, I don't know if we're seeing a print from somewhere else, perhaps. Wait, how did I do this? Can you... I just used an accidental like command in Tmux. Shit. Now I need to get things back to where they were. No. Oh god. It's causing all sorts of weird issues. No. I don't know how to fix this. I was using, instead of doing Control B Alt 9 to scroll back, I did 8, and then apparently that shuffles the windows around, which is not what I wanted. Serpent.AI. What is that? How do I fix this? God damn it, dude. It seems to swap like... Well, there is a fix I can think of. It's just like getting rid of this guy and going back to... And never pressing that... What's up, Eric, by the way? Just never pressing that key press, like that combo again. I've been using Tmux for like years, and I've never done accidentally that shortcut. So that's pretty interesting. Projects, that's going to be the project TC one. Okay, and then here I can rebuild. And I was mostly looking at... Oh fuck, project TC is already there. No! Abort the mission. I'm just gonna destroy it. Fuck it. I'm just gonna restart from this section, because this is gonna be hard to fix. What's up, Slim? It's gonna be hard to fix. I'm just gonna like nuke it pretty much, essentially. So this is Project DC. I'm gonna go out by one. I'm gonna go to Serpent.AI, which is kind of like my user space with the framework, and then we could split this guy like this. Tmux foo. And I was looking to use HTOP here to monitor some of the processes, because sometimes when I work with multi-processing with Python, as I'm building stuff, if the parent crashes and I don't handle things properly, it's possible that I'll have some orphans. So I need to make sure that doesn't really happen. So I keep an instance of this guy around, and then I was running the notebook also. What's going on? We're finishing up the recording. It hasn't crashed. Like the merging hasn't crashed, but I was looking to inspect like what came out of it, because I'm not sure if what I saw. I'm not sure if what I saw was just like some prints from other sections, or maybe even the merging function and not the one I had set up. It didn't crash, however, so there's a good chance it was fine. And I was just okay. That was the Jupyter notebook right here. Okay, thank you. I can use this. All right, just fixing the environment because I did screw up a bit with Tmux. Just give me a sec. I did fuck up slightly. Come on, like this. No, it was the opposite actually. Whatever. We're gonna live with this. It's fine. It's all good. All right, so I'll do it again. Unfortunately, I am gonna have to do it again. So let's do sudo serpent record cannibalt. All right. How did you do the frame thingy eventually? Like which frame thingy? You're gonna need to give me a little more so I understand the frame thingy. You're saying that, like, are you asking like what the strategy was for this sort of stuff? That we ended up picking, because the frame part is actually super easy, man. Like we're just taking whatever we get as fast as we can in the game agent like main process, and we're just storing it because we added this PNG compression to the pipeline optionally. And when we work with the recording part, what I do is I automatically append, if it's not there, I do append like a PNG to the pipeline. So what I end up getting from the frame grabber is really, really small because it's compressed. Like it's not just like the raw frame arrays anymore. So I can just store that in memory for a very long duration without like having any sort of risk of, you know, like filling up the RAM too much. Yeah. So I'm still in the middle, Slim, of doing it. But what we're doing right now is merging them together. So I'm collecting the key presses uninterrupted in another process. I'm storing them in guess what, Redis, and then I'm just like, when we focus out of the game, I'm trying to merge everything according to their timestamps in order. This is what we're testing right now, so I already have the code for that. I just didn't test it. And once I have everything like merged together in terms of time, I'm gonna go over that series of, you know, like that piece of data, like one item at a time, and we're gonna try to flesh out some logic to build the data, you know, like the flat data file. So I was about to test the merging, but then I ended up fucking up my Tmux a bit by accident, so I'm just recovering from that. So record cannibalt serpent cannibalt game agent. All right, so we're gonna record. Like I don't have to play for very long, to be honest. Like I played too long the last time. Like we just need to record a few presses. You'll know when it starts because of the lag. So normally you would wait until it tells you that you can play. I just started it. So there is going to be a massive, like a bit of a lag. Yeah, see like this when it starts. But after that, there's no lag. After that, we're good. Did I focus out by accident? Because I do see some game frame buffers here. I don't know where that came from. I must have accidentally like focused out. Okay, let's go. Let's just do this. Okay, and what I did by accident, I wanted to zoom in on this and use the back scroll, but then I used the control B Alt 8, and I ended up like switching the windows around. So somewhere along those game frame buffers, I'm looking to see if I would get perhaps some key presses, so some keyboard events, and we have to catch the first one where it says paused, or maybe this one. And I'm not sure we're gonna see any, so I'm kind of wondering if the chat, if you have better eyes than I do and you can kind of spot it. I may be blind sometimes, so I'm not looking for game frame buffers. I'm looking for keyboard events in this structure, and if they're not there, it could be that there's something wrong with our current way of doing things, or in our merging. Doesn't seem like they're like I would spot like a different structure like almost like right away, right? I don't see any sort of keyboard events there. So let's go back. And try to, first of all, find the prints. Like, I don't know if I have a print in... I don't. I don't see any prints here. And that's my merge. Okay. And then the only print I can see is the data when I use merge. And I should probably sleep for a very, very long time in order to prevent that from, you know, like triggering again or something. Yeah, you could also use Control F directly there. I would spot it. I know you're coming from the church of Control F. I understand. But we'll be fine, man. Like, I could just like stall it. And essentially I'm passing the keyboard events. Like, maybe one thing I didn't check is that there was actually like any keyboard events. So maybe I need to do... Maybe I need to make sure that we did this part properly first, right? So let's make sure that we have some keyboard events. And then I was using the merge frames by passing those keyboard events. And then I was looking to print out whatever data came out of there. And I'll just stall it after that, so it doesn't re-trigger. Because the thing is, the pause thing doesn't only run once. Maybe that's something I want to change in the future. I don't know. But it will run every time it's paused. So I think that's something we might want to fix. But at the same time, I would hesitate a bit to fix something like that, just because some people might already be using it, you know, like in a certain way. I'll just do oh, you can't rebuild now. Okay. Python setup.py install, just to rebuild the egg. And these two folders essentially are sharing their virtual environment. So if I rebuild the egg there, my user space is gonna be seeing that latest build. All right, interesting. All right, let's go. Let's record again. I'm gonna give it some time to start. That way I can kind of like just avoid the lag before it starts. There's a bit of a spike in resource usage. And then we can start playing. Okay, so I won't collect a lot. I'll just like spam some keys for a while and, you know, like stop. Okay. And then I'm gonna stop it right there so it doesn't trigger a second time. I'm gonna zoom back in. I did it again! No fucking way! Why did I do this? Fucking hell, dude. Okay, luckily I can just like revert. I got lucky. Okay, I need to get on my T-Mux game. I need to be a little better at that. Holy shit. It works, chat. It actually fucking works. That's amazing. So that's my keyboard events that I captured. That's the first print. The second print starts here, so you see a bunch of game frame buffers. But look at what's peppered in. Look at what's peppered in there. We have frame buffers, but we also have keyboard events with their timestamps. All right, so the merging seems to be working just fine. This is pretty cool. So unless we see some issues like arise, we're gonna assume that this is good, and we're gonna start working on the next part, man. No more shady. Yeah, he's a grown adult now. Like he's totally adulting. Like he evolved to the next form. I am satisfied with this. I just have to now. We have to move on. Like so, if it can create this merge. Perfect. And now we need to start working with that data. So like I said, the possibilities are pretty simple. It's either that we get a frame buffer object, or that we get a random like it's a dictionary. So there's no like class behind it or anything. And it's probably just easier to just check if it's an instance of a game frame buffer and then else, right? Else. Yeah. Serpent made me change. That's bullshit. Of course it's bullshit. Why would I? All right. So for I don't know how to call these things. So I'll just say for item and data right now. And the first thing I want to pivot on, like I said, is the item. Is it an instance? So if is instance item of game frame buffer. I don't know if I have that in scope here, so let's see. I do. All right, we're good. All right, so we have to work our way through organizing the data and writing it to the HDFI. So we've done that before in the past, right? So we have a bunch of snippets because we had a solution, we have a prototype, and the file writing has never been the problem. So that's not my issue, but there's some other stuff that we need to do once we have that, right? Sup, Tariq? Beautiful emote. He said Slim Shady twice. That was the fucking name, dude. That was not my fault. Like I was reading what I was seeing on this on the screen. Like that's not something you can place on me, buddy. It said Slim fucking Shady, you know? I said I read out by accident when I felt less lazy the entire name. Yeah, so first thing I want to do is just like determine, is this item a game frame buffer object? And if it's not, it's going to be a keyboard object. All right, so that's already something we have here, so we can differentiate between the two. Cool. What's next? What's next? So what's the first thing we want to perhaps track? I did see there was a reward function type of thing that we have to maybe consider. First of all, we're gonna need to build some state also. So I'm gonna start by seeing assigning a latest game frame buffer. That's gonna start out as null or none. Good night. All right. Good night, dude. All right. So let's say latest game frame buffer. I'm gonna start that as none, and as I go through the sequence, every time I see a new game frame buffer, I'm gonna assign it to the latest. The reason for that, the reason I'm doing this is when I see, after that, I see a keyboard event, then I can, instead of just like looking at the neighbors and trying to do some lookups like that, I can just use whatever's the latest that we saw, because there are more frame buffers grabbed than there are key presses. Right? So there's a good chance that whatever we just saw, which is going to be the latest game frame buffer, there's a good chance that this is going to be like really close to what our keyboard event is, and these guys are ordered that way already, right? Yeah, it's a nice emote. All right, latest game. Okay, so let's start it as none. Now, what's one thing we're gonna do? Well, every time it's a game frame buffer, we're gonna start. One of the things, at least, that we're gonna do is replace this guy with item. Right, so that's one thing. So why would I do that? Well, like I said, like when we see a keyboard event, we can then associate it with the latest frame without doing any sort of lookups. Right. So this is one of the advantages of merging this data. Okay, so that's one thing. So when I see what is relevant, really, what is my main piece of information? There's two choices, chat. Like what's the relevant piece of information? Is it a game frame buffer, or is it a keyword event? Which one is the most relevant? I'm totally not gonna spoil anything. Give it a shot. You have a 50-50 per coin flip. Just do it. 50-50. Maybe you're wrong, maybe you're right. Which one is the most relevant in the exercise that we're trying to do? Is it the key press, or is it the game frame buffer? I'm waiting. I'm waiting. Now, but I'm gonna answer it if no one wants to do it. It might seem like the most relevant one is the key press, because we were saying we're recording the inputs, right? But it's a trap. It's a trap. The real relevant piece of information, it's the game frame buffers. Why would you reach such a conclusion, even if you don't know that much about what we're doing? It's the input for the neural net is going to be what? Is it going to be like key presses? No, no. The input is the visual data, right? So that's still our primary input for the neural net. So the real relevant piece of information is not like when there's a key that's pressed. That's information we want to track because that's an action, right? That happens along with that frame. But it's very well possible that when we're training that neural net, that I'll pass a series of frames and say there was nothing that happened there, and it's still a legit, it's still a legit like input, right? It's possible like when you're doing these systems, doing nothing is just as valid as pressing a key or not, or another one, right? So yes, the main piece of information, or the main observation is going to start out as a game frame buffer. That is more important because that is the input, like I said, to our neural nets. So when we see a game frame buffer, yes, I will append it the latest game frame buffer because that's going to help for this guy. But then we have to figure out something else. It's going to get complicated for sure. Okay, so there's a reason why it used to look like this when we were recording. I'm not expecting this to be like super short and sweet. It's going to get complicated, but we've been there once. I think we'll do a better job this time around. Just a bit of a better job. But it will get complicated because I'm still iterating and I'm going to see some game frame buffers. And I have to sort of say like within... I don't know how to do this, man. I won't lie. We're going to have to think about it. Because how do I know? I won't necessarily know. That's the tricky part. I'm saying the main piece of information is the game frame buffer, so it's possible that nothing happens. But the timings are not exactly guaranteed to be like on the spot or anything. Right? They're not guaranteed to be on the spot. So I can't just say like whatever like key press happened at that same microsecond precision that the frame happened at. So I might have to still do some lookups, some look aheads, maybe for some key downs. Oh, that's okay. So maybe when I see a game frame buffer, I can kind of like open some sort of observation, and then maybe just like append to it later on if I do see a key press, and that's the game frame buffer that kind of made sense. Interesting. I was not thinking it was going to be like this complicated out of the gate, but it kind of is. So observation, I need some sort of like middle data structure here that's going to hold the open game frame buffers that we've seen, and then, or maybe it's just going to contain everything. I don't know. Maybe that's going to be my observations, and I'm going to keep re-editing this stuff if I have the reference. That's kind of interesting. Let's pretend that this is going to be like our observations. It's going to be a dictionary so that we can access these things by key, reference them like directly. And when I get a game frame buffer, it might be as simple as saying it is now the latest game frame buffer, and also adding an observation because every game frame buffer matters. And when we see a key press, that's a key down, I will try to look up the latest game frame buffer and try to append some information. But I will need another structure on top of that to keep track of the associations between a key press and, oh man, it's gonna be pleasant. It's gonna be pleasant. It's gonna be a nice experiment. It might not be as complicated as what we did before, like in the first prototype, but it's still gonna be pretty involved. Never said it was gonna be easy. Never. No, I didn't say it was gonna be easy. This is not like easy stuff. It's not easy stuff. I'm trying to reconcile like two sets of informations that were captured independently from one another, and I'm doing it after the fact. So there's gonna be a lot of like need to keep track of middle like structures and stuff like that until we have the desired data. So what's my what's a full observation? Maybe I can do this just to give you guys, because I kind of have it in my head, but I want it to come across like a little easier. What's an observation going to look like? It's going to be a game frame buffer for sure, right? It's going to be a game frame buffer. I want it to have the keys that were pressed, right, at that specific or very, very close to that frame buffer, if any, right, if any. So something like, you know, like hey, it's a key space down. And I also want, and this is gonna be complicated, but I also want their duration, right? So it was pressed for like 1.234 seconds, for example. All right, so and this is a collection of possible key presses that we can append to. The other piece of information that I really want in there is also, other than what was pressed, right? Other than what was pressed on that frame, were there any keys that were already pressed down, right? So it's possible that, hey, you know what, like key W was already down, and we don't need like extra information necessarily. We'll just say like there were active keys already that were pressed like on a previous game frame buffer, but on the specific one, we did press space down for 1.234 seconds and maybe something else. So the observation, like in terms of like amounts of data, is not that crazy. But to build this while iterating over the sequence, that the merge sequence, is more involved than it looks like. It is actually pretty intense, right? It is actually pretty intense, because to know a duration, I need to kind of keep something in a bit of an observation state, like a middle state, because I've seen the key down, and to be able to capture that duration, I need to see the key up. I need to see like when you actually release it. I don't know the duration when you press it. I know the duration when you release it. So building an observation like this will take. So I'll keep this around for now, just to give us a bit of a guide, and maybe for you guys it's also a little more visual. So of course, like adding the game frame buffer, that's super easy, right? I can just say, whoops. I can just add my so why do I have like a dictionary? Why do I need keys? Because I need to re-access this thing later on. I need to find it again. So we can use, what do we have that's pretty unique inside of a game frame buffer? Probably not a lot. No, I think I'm gonna have to go down at the frame level and extract some sort of timestamp, and that's pretty much it. It's pretty much the smallest unique piece of information that I can kind of get in there, or from there. Okay, so never mind this. Okay, so one thing at a time. An observation is comprised of a game frame buffer. We can nail this like right away. That's not a problem. So observations, we would need to find perhaps like a key or a timestamp. The timestamp itself could be coming from item.frames. So when you're working with a game frame buffer, you can go and grab like the frames that comprise this buffer. And we're gonna take I think what we've done so far in terms of alignment is take the one before last, right? Like this. And I can ask for its timestamp. And that can become the key. That can become the key for that dictionary entry. So once I have the timestamp, I could say the observations for timestamp is going to be item. Okay. So I'm setting... We're going to have to track of so many things at the same time. That's going to be a great exercise. If you're just like checking out for the night and trying to go to sleep, like you don't want to try to pay attention to this. Like, your brain's going to fucking melt. I promise. We're going to have to keep track of so many things at once. But one thing at a time. An observation is comprised of a game frame buffer. We just kind of took care of that. I just added an entry of that game frame buffer. So the item was checked to be a game frame buffer. So I'm just adding it with the timestamp of one of these things. Yeah, of course you can't sleep, dude. You must be excited as fuck, dope, man. That's crazy. It's gonna be hard to sleep. It's gonna be hard to sleep. Like it's pretty exciting news. It's super awesome. Observations. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now, maybe on top of that, like this is not an observation, right? This is an item. This is a part of the observation, as per the comment above. So I need to also add an empty list, because I don't know if there are keys that were pressed at that point in time. I'll only know later. And the actual keys that were pressed at that point in time, we would know that But to know that, and it's not just an empty list, to know this, I would have to have another structure that like maybe that's a set or something that tells me which keys are pressed down at that point in time. So we can do this. We can do like active keys, right? And just say that it's a set, and always say that this is active keys. Of course, the active keys is gonna, the composition of the active keys set, that's gonna change as we see some keyboard event items from that data set right there. Okay, so active keys. So we can pretty much do active keys and the actual game frame buffers. So the real complexity is figuring out what key press is associated with this, because the timestamps don't match up. They have like microsecond precision. So it's not just a matter of saying, hey, this is the key press for frame 37, and I have frame 37, and there you go. It's actually a little more complicated than that. And then not only that, but then once we manage to associate a key press with this, we also need to keep it open until we see the corresponding key up, and then be able to measure the duration. So it's actually pretty intense. Let's switch to the keyboard event for a second. All right, so what's one thing that we will do? Well, we'll have to find, when we see a key event, we can either split on the up and down from the start, because I think we're gonna have like different behaviors. Yeah, let's start by actually pivoting on if it's a keyboard up or down. What does our event look like? It's a dictionary that has a name where you have the enum entry and a dash separator, as well as down or up for the event. Okay, so let's start by doing that. Let's start by doing a key name and key event. We've done that before yesterday in another little test. And that's going to be coming from item name, where we're splitting on the dash. All right, so we're going to do dot split dash. What's up, Half No Ammo? What's up, dude? Welcome, dude. All right. So we're splitting on this, and then I'm just unpacking the two items in that list to like specific variables. Then I can pivot on it. I can say if key event is down, and well, I could do else, or I could do an elif. Definitely preference at this point, but I like to see like both, just for readability, even though there's no else clause in this case. All right, cool. So if it's this or this, how do we handle key downs? All right, how do we handle key downs? What's one thing we want to do when we see a key down? We want to add it to the active keys, because at that point in time, sleepy but still coding. How you doing? I'm doing all right, man. I'm doing all right. I did start a little late today. It's gonna be a bit of a different, like crowd, I guess. It's not necessarily like my most regular time. But I'm having a good time, because I'm feeling that today's going to be the day where we finally nail this, right? This stupid problem that I've been working on for so long. Oh man, it's a pretty ambitious feature. So I take comfort in that. I'm not going to try to pretend like it's something easy that we're struggling with. It's definitely something that's more involved. And if we pull it off like cleanly, it's going to be a super awesome thing to add to the framework. But it is a bit mind bending at times. Yeah. We are working on the classic sorting algorithms of CS. Harder than you thought to program. It's very good knowledge to have, however. The pain is worth it, Elijah. It's actually worth it. All right, so when it's a key down, one of the things that we want to do is of course add it to the set of active keys, right? So we're just gonna make sure, and it's a set. So if by any sort of like weird occurrence, which should not happen because we are properly removing duplicates. One of the issues on Linux, and I can't speak for other OSs because I haven't tried it on the other OSs so far, but if you hold down a key, it doesn't just emit a key down event once. It will keep re-emitting every time you poll for active keyboard events or inputs. It will keep saying this key is down, is down, is down, is down, is down, is down. So I have to kind of like earlier in the process, in my input recorder, I do remove some duplication there. Hey, what's up, writer? Okay, so we're gonna add the key name, right? Is what I want to add to this. Why? Because it's a string, and then that's gonna compose my observation at that point in time when we see the game frame buffer. So that's one thing we want to do. And when we release the key, I want to remove it also from there, right? One thing that one weird thing that we've seen happen, I don't know if it's going to happen this time around. I don't know if it's just because we were not filtering stuff like correctly, perhaps in the past. But this guy will actually like raise an exception if you're trying to remove a key that's not there. It's not going to tolerate it. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. Have you switched to focus more on the framework? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I did have a bit of a, you know, like an introspection moment, and I still think like the framework is probably the best sort of content I can bring to the table, like versus doing some web stuff and extensions, which we've tried, which was a welcome break from the framework, but I still think it's the best stuff I can kind of bring here. Okay, so yeah, removing, we have to be careful. It's possible this guy will definitely crash. This guy will definitely crash if it's trying to remove something that's there. I think it's a little weird. I think it should be a little more tolerant, but hey, as long as it's consistent across the board, it's fine. Because there's two philosophies for this. Like it is either like raise and totally like just say like, hey, you're trying to do something that doesn't make sense, or just be like, hey, essentially you wanted to make sure that this thing was not in there anymore. So even if it's not there, I'm going to tolerate that you did it remove. Two ways of really like just like understanding this. Two perspectives. What's up, Fusion? Pape. All right. So that's one thing we want to do. It's definitely not the only thing that we want to do. Right? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Ryder. I'm just I need it. If you're working on a long-term project, what I would say, like a bigger you know, more ambitious long-term project, it's good to have like definitely good to have some sort of alt that you can spend some time in there. Really good to have some other project that you can kind of just use as a break from the other one. You're gonna burn out, like absolutely not burn out necessarily like in the sense of like a general burnout where you need to take like some time off and everything, but you're definitely gonna burn out in that specific project. Your brain's gonna want to see some other stuff. So it's really good to have. It's really good to have like that other project or that other, you know, like place where you can. I'm looking for a word and I'm not finding it, and it's pissing me off. An outlet. Another outlet is what I was looking for. Something else that you can bring your creativity to and your skills to, and make your brain work in a different context. Yeah. Discord giving my bot. Uh-oh. Okay, so active keys. That's kind of it. Like, I won't lie. That's kind of it. That's kind of it. Like that's how we track the active keys. Now we have to focus on the actual problem, and that's what we do. We need to go and find which buffer to add this key down to. So let's focus on that little problem right now. On top of adding it to the active keys, I need to look at the latest game frame buffer. So I'm going to say if latest game frame buffer is not none. Oops. Yeah, absolutely, definitely. It's totally easy. Yeah, it totally happens. To the point where you start producing like lower quality work. You question yourself a lot more. You lose perspective a bit, right? So there's so many of these things, man. 2 exams before you graduate. God damn. Well, just hang in there, you know. It's probably worth it at this point where you're at. If you're that close to graduation, just hang in there. Latest. Okay, so if we do have a latest game frame buffer at that point in time, I want to extract the timestamp the same way, and then I'm going to use that timestamp to find the existing observation, and I'm going to append my key, my item to the list here. Some crazy shit, chat. All right, crazy shit. Maybe it's not a list even. Like, we'll have to figure it out. But so far so good. Like, we're not missing out on anything. All right, head off to bed. All right, cool. Just stream. I haven't watched the Brain Bites podcast on it, dude. You have to. You don't have to do it. It's fine. We had a good time. We had a good time yesterday, right? So I don't know where it fell off in terms of like where it fell in terms of people's expectations, but I think it was a good mix of serious and joking around, man. We had a good time. So yeah, you can watch it. We're gonna figure out what we want to do for audio, but we are definitely looking at that. Okay. So if there is a game frame buffer, let's extract the timestamp pretty much like the same way that we were doing here. I don't think this is enough logic to make a helper function for. Definitely not. I'm also probably just going to use it twice, so I don't see why you would want to make a helper functions. Where can I watch this podcast? Yes, I realized I talked about a podcast without giving any sort of information. Bad Serpent.AI, bad. Let me show you something real quick, chat. If you go like I don't know if you might be on mobile, but if you're not, if you're actually in the browser right now, or even in the desktop app, what? you can go to the channel, right? Well, Dope is gonna link you to it. That's good. But I still want to give some context around it. Snick bad. What's up, faking dude? All right, so there is a Twitch team, not just like the Snick is not alone on an island. There is a team. There is a bunch of people I really like enjoy sharing thoughts with, working on projects with. So there is a team. We call it the Brain Bites. It's a bunch of people that do like educational-ish stuff. I would say. So it's a mix of entertaining and education stuff. So maybe it's gonna make your brain do a thing or two, and you're also gonna have a decent time while you're watching it. So it's a bunch of people like this. I'm gonna talk about the team a little more before I end the stream, but you can still like browse this list and see what's up. But we started having a podcast every other week, essentially. So we're just starting out. That was the second time we ever did it. But we're starting to have a podcast every other week where we take like 4 people from the team here and we just discuss some topics. So yesterday was about, well, it started out as, because these things are pretty organic, right? It started out as like talking about like assistants like Alexa and Siri and Google Assistant and stuff like that, right? And then we just like organically took it wherever it was going to end up, right? It just like organically, which is good in my opinion, at least for talk show / podcast. Like I don't think it should be too hard of an agenda. So we have a starter topic and we just like to get there. So if you want to see it, it's the link that Dope was saying. There is a link on Twitch to get to that channel. Spoiler bye. It's not a spoiler. I just said how it works, man. I just said it works like this. It's a little it's a little organic, and the topic was not a secret. So if you go to Brain Bites TV on Twitch, and I can drop that in chat, you can look at the VOD there. All right, so let's say right here. That's the VOD. That's the VOD right here. All right, look at this. Look at this. It was a podcast. and Doggo was even in it, chat. Doggo was even in the podcast. Look at that shit. Doggo stealing the attention. Look at fucking hell, dude. So she's not always on the couch, like doing nothing. Anyways, that is it for the podcast. I'm going to talk about the team before I close out today. My voice is having a good time. All right. Twitch chat is weird. It shows up. Yeah, I know. Because there's like essentially you have 3 names on Twitch. You have your username, your display name, and your login name, something like that. And I think some, of course, like when they build these interfaces, they can pick from the 3. So of course your login is, I don't think it's ever really going to get used or anything. But sometimes I guess like one team will pick a name versus the other. So it's not broken, but it's just like using another equivalent piece of information essentially on Twitch. All right. Doggo didn't freak out. No, she didn't freak out. She did just like spontaneously like started licking my face out of nowhere, but she was all right. She was all right mostly. I think she got a little confused because I did stream before, and she kind of knows that when I stop talking to myself out loud, it's time to stop sleeping, right? Because now she's sleeping because she's like, oh, I'm not gonna get any attention now. So I stopped my own stream, and then I prepared for the podcast, and then she was like, oh, it's over. We can just like resume life. And then I started doing it again, and then she's like, what's this? Like, I don't get it. I don't get it. And then she just like tried to, get my attention like that, something like that. All right, cool. So timestamp, I can get, but this time around, I'm not getting the timestamp from the item. I'm getting them from the latest game frame buffer. All right, so I'm looking up whatever was set here, and I'm saying give me your timestamp, and then I can access this observation that's currently open. All right, so I can say observations where it's timestamp. And what do we want to do there? We want to mutate or add to that second element in the observation, right? So I'm going to say the second observation, and then I can say append, and I'm going to try to do something that looks a little like we did in the comment there. So, except I'm probably going to have the down or up, just a key name. So let's say key name. Or maybe make a tuple, right? It has the key name and its timestamp. So item.timestamp. No dot notation in Python. That's not going to work. Like this, right? So why do I store the timestamp? Because essentially I want to have the duration in the end, not the timestamp, right? But that's fine because we're gonna find this thing again in the future when we see the up, right? So I have to create another observation, like another variable again, essentially, right? To track that I have some key that's up right now. Now, do I want to create another one? Yes, absolutely. And I just forgot to cast this. I just remembered I forgot to cast this to a list. I wanted to do that. Okay. Is there a way to just use one for active keys? And maybe. But I'm comfortable using out like a second one here. So let's say down keys, and this is going to be a dictionary, and in that dictionary we're going to have the key name as the key, and we're going to have the timestamp. So it's essentially a mapping, right? We're going to have the timestamp of the observation, which is the key of the observation, the timestamp of the game frame buffer where the down was added. We're gonna need to keep track of that. So it's not that bad, it's not that bad, so we add the observation. That's fine if we have a game frame buffer, and when we do that, we also need to add the mapping to the down keys, right? So I have to say down keys where it's key name, and then set that timestamp there. So I have a reference. Because when I have a key up, I can figure out what the key name is again. And then I can use this key name to look up my down keys, figure out the timestamp, find the observation based on that timestamp. And then I can go and calculate the duration and replace the second item in the tuple with the duration and not just the timestamp. I know. It's a little you have to keep track of a couple of things. That's pretty intense. But we'll get it. It's definitely not as bad as it used to be. All right. And maybe that's it for maybe that's it for the key down. I don't see any other stuff I need to do here. Okay, let's do key up and see if we missed anything. So I remove it from active keys, sure. And then I would have to figure out like if there is an entry. And so if we have an entry for that key name, which is in scope here, so if key name in key downs, or down keys, down keys. So if it is there, there's a few things that we need to do. I will extract the timestamp. So I'll say timestamp. And this is the observation timestamp, which is a little confusing. That's going to be, of course, down keys where it's key name. And then I can bring in the observation or mutate some stuff in there. So I can say the duration, because I can figure out the duration at that point in time. And that's going to be observations where it's timestamp 1, 1. That's going to give me the previous timestamp. So I can do my current timestamp of the key press. So I can do the item dot where it's timestamp like this. They all use the same function to generate the timestamp, so they're gonna be like on the same scale. And the duration is essentially the current timestamp for that release of the key compared to the timestamp of when we press the key down, and that's gonna give us the duration for the key press. Once I have the duration, I want to replace, right? I want to replace observation. I want to replace whatever we had as a timestamp with that duration, and then it's going to make me a tuple that has the key name and the duration. So let's do that. Let's do observations where it's timestamp and it's 1 and 1 again, and I'm setting that to duration. Okay, so now I have game frame buffers. Eventually down the line, we figure out if a key was pressed that should have been associated with that frame buffer. When we do that, we store the key itself with the duration. The key itself, sorry, with the timestamp of that key press. And also at the same time, we look at the active keys. The active keys is super easy, so that we don't need to elaborate on that. When I see a key getting released in my feed, my stream of events or whatever, I go back, I figure my way back to that observations, and I try to go. Oh, there may be a problem. Wait. Oh no, shit! There's one thing I'm doing wrong here. What if we have more than one observation? Yeah, what if we have more than one key? Right now, there's something I want to change here, because if 2 keys are pressed at the same time, they will likely be associated with the same frame buffer. And I already consider a list, and I append a tuple here, but I don't know the index of my. Yeah, no, that's not gonna work if we have 2 key presses at the same time. So we're almost there, and the logic this time around is way more simple, like compared to this shit. So I'm really liking this second attempt, this second version, way better. But there is still a way of accessing this this information in the middle of the observation that's not okay. So it should probably instead be a dictionary where we have the key. So instead of being a list, it should be an empty dictionary, I think. And then we have to make sure that when we access this thing with a key down, instead of using append, we're going to set it to this key name. Okay, wait. Let's just give it a bit of space. We're going to say, hey, it's a dictionary this time around, so we're going to set you the key name as the key. And the value is going to be that item timestamp. Something like that. And then we can transform this dictionary like into tuples like later on. That's going to work. Okay, something like this. And so it's dictionary. And now when we want to do these thingies, it's no longer a like an array again. So how do I calculate the duration then? It's my current timestamp minus observation timestamp, and then it's the key name here, and that's it, right? Key name like this. That's giving me the new duration, and then here I set. Wait, no. Shit! I'm still missing the 1 here. All right, no, the 1 needs to be there because it's the second item in that tuple. Same thing here, so it's gonna be 1 and key name, and then we're gonna replace that with duration. Okay, now that's a little more like it can accommodate. That's fine. It can accommodate like multiple key presses now. Last thing I want to do is remove my entries from down keys. All right, so I want to del down keys with key name, because I don't need this information. We closed out this thing, this reference, this mapping, we're done. So that's gone. Well, I mean, the entry for that key is gone. Active keys, we already maintained that. The observations, there's nothing really to maintain except going back to change some information as we discover it. And this is kind of done. So this is looking good. This is looking quite all right. I mean, like right now. So I'd love to see me printing out observations and see where that goes. Let's go and see what happens here. Let's print out some observations. Yeah, let's do that. So I'm gonna zoom out. I'm gonna rebuild my package. It's a big step. This one's a big step, all right? So if we do get some success here, it's gonna be really it's gonna be an awesome thing. I'm expecting. I think we changed too many things to just like get it first try, but we'll see. I'm gonna wait for it to tell me it's ready. Like it wants me to play the game like this, like right now. All right, so let's play the game, and then we get some frames. I press some keys. I just like spam it a bit. All right, and then maybe I can die and focus out. Okay, so there's our structure. Didn't crash. Now is it good? Is it good? Is it gonna work? Okay, so let's Control C out. Let's zoom in. Okay, this one's gonna be a little hard to investigate, I would say. Let's go scroll back a bit. All right, so what do we have, and where does it start? So of course it's a massive structure that we're kind of expecting that. It's just gonna be the game frame buffer. Let's try to remember. It's the game frame buffer, the active keys as a dictionary, and then a set for the keys that are already pressed when this thing happens. So let's try to find some place where this kind of deviates a bit, where we have some input. So see here. Let's see here. Let's look at this stuff here. So for this frame that was at this specific timing, okay, before that, this one. So this specific timing, I'm saying, hey, there is an active key here. There's key space. There is key space, and it was pressed for 0.23 seconds, and there were no other active keys. Now I didn't release key space yet in the next frame, right? In the next frame. But it's not. It didn't go down this time around. So what it says is that there's no like new keys that are pressed down, but key space is still active during that set of frames, that frame buffer. And eventually, it's going to disappear from the active keys. That's because I've released it. I am glad to report that this is fucking working. This is awesome, dude. This is actually pretty awesome. Like we figured it out. We figured it. This is amazing. So we are reconciling two data sources like that. We're able to calculate the duration of key presses, and then in the other frames we can also say what's active or not. Active meaning it's been pressed down on the previous frame buffer. This is awesome. This is massive. And then I would just collect this forever. No, we're not done. I still need to write it to the file, but the hard part has been done. The hard part was collecting and mutating that list of observations along the way. This is fucking cool. Really, really, really nice. All right, I'm definitely happy with that. Okay, so looking good. We got it first try. How about that? Okay, so that's my observations. I have my observations. Now, we're not done. Like I said, we need to write to the file. That's not it. We're not done. But the rest should be sort of easy with the previous code that we've had in there. Ah, shit. We forgot. Oh, man. There is something else I forgot. Shit. The reward functions. It shouldn't be too bad. It needs to be factored in somewhere in that piece of logic, right? It needs to be factored in. I mean, thankfully, the reward functions can be inferred. Like the reward itself should be able to, you should be able to infer that from the frames and not the key presses, because the input is still the frame sequence. The input is still the frame sequence, so you can definitely infer your reward just from that. So that's good, because what it means is that reward can be calculated just when we see the frame buffer for the first time around. But I did forget about that. Let's not lie. I did forget about the rewards. Let me try to find a relevant snippet here. It's pretty much this thing here. All right. So we're going to try to use this. And I'm using... This needs to be in the setup, first of all. So before we go in the data. So essentially where we do all this other setup. So I'll do it here. All right, so compute reward, that's going to be a flag that says, hey, is there a registered or specified reward function in your config for your plugin in the framework? And if there is, and what you passed along was valid, a valid one, then we'll set that to true. And then later on, we'll pivot on that flag to say, do we need to append or calculate the reward? So I start out with the reward func as none, but it could be replaced by an actual reward, an actual function, Python function or closure, whatever. And then I map it out. I just replace it right away. So we have a reward func essentially that's ready to go to receive some data, and we have a flag that says if we want to compute a reward or not. All right. So how does that work? We'll leave it be here for now. We'll leave it be. And I think the reward is going to be the fourth element in that tuple, right? And it's optional. It's solely optional. One thing I like about, and that I thought was important when we built the Serpent.AI framework, was to not only tool it for reinforcement learning. Right? I want to tool it for any sort of approaches. So while I do support registering reward functions, they're totally optional, right? You don't have to say, well, I can't use Serpent.AI because I don't want to do reinforcement. No. You can use it. If you want to do reinforcement learning, you can. And it's going to be relatively friendly for that. But if you don't want to do it, this tool is not like automatically obsolete or inadequate for you because I don't force the reinforcement learning loop, essentially. Like, you don't have to do it that way. Okay, so I'm going to say, yeah, the fort is probably just going to be like the reward score. It's just going to be the reward score. Something like this. So that's an observation. And that's something that's going to need to make its way somewhere in the docs. Okay, so how do we add something? Well, when we create our observation, our initial observation, when we see a frame, this is where we're going to run well, some additional stuff, right? So let's get ready before. And let's use perhaps the second snippet because I think it's already there. Yeah, this little thing, right? We initialize the reward score as 0. So if you don't care about it, you're not doing reinforcement learning. It's gonna be occupying some space, right? It's gonna be a 0, but you're free to overlook that when you work with the data file that gets created. You don't need to do it. All right. So first thing I'm doing, I'm setting it to 0. Of course, like what's gonna be that fourth? It's just gonna be reward score. Like this. And if we have, like I said, like the compute reward flag is set to true, then we'll just pass the frames and inputs. I don't even know why we're passing the inputs, to be honest, because the inputs should have nothing to do with the reward, right? We're already tracking the inputs out there. I don't think like pressing something should be considered. It's really just like a sequence of frames that you infer some information from. It's a highly domain specific type of thing. It's a game specific type of thing. This is why we don't call it like true AI right now or general AI, because we're still coding something outside to tell it if it did good or bad, right? So essentially, we're not cheating. We're not like giving all sorts of information to the agent, but as the agent explores stuff in reinforcement learning, we have to still tell it this was a good thing, this was a bad thing, and not this was a good thing because of this, right? We're not cheating. We're just saying in this specific problem domain that you're exploring, you did this, you chose to do this as you were exploring that domain, and that was a bad thing. And then you did that at that point in time with this visual context, and that was a good thing. So it's getting closer to being able to figure out some stuff without like too much specific coding in there, but it's definitely not general intelligence still. So don't believe the hype that you see like everywhere on the tech blogs. It's not general intelligence. There's still us that's crafting the reward functions, that's telling it if it's doing a good job or not. I'm still there programming that reward function that says this what you did in that sequence of frames, that was good, and that was bad. So I'm technically still hard coding some specific stuff, but at least the agent doesn't have that hard coding. It's just asking. It's essentially like asking a coach if you're like an athlete or something. Right? You're just referring to the coach. You're just saying like, hey, was that good? I just did that. You saw it. Was that good or bad? So this is where we're at right now with reinforcement learning. Right? This is kind of like the current state of things. It's an athlete that will try things, and it's gonna ask the coach to see like, hey, was that fine or not? Was that good or not? Or judges. You can see judges in a competition, right? Something like that. Like think about the diving competitions or something, you know, like the good old like, hey, 9, right? It's a little like this. Like we're gonna do something. I'm gonna get my game agent to dive. Maybe it's gonna do like a belly flop or a bomb, or maybe it's gonna pull off like a super nice like dive, and then it's gonna look at the judges after it dives and gonna say like, how did I do? Right? I just did this random bullshit. This happened. How did I do? Right? So that's the reward function, the reward score. And this is how it kind of relates to the current state of what people call AI, but it's not really AI. Okay, so we're still gonna offer to compute that if it's registered in your plugin config. Cool. We're gonna add the reward score. So that was one thing I forgot, but now we have it. And then we have to focus on writing the file. Right? We're gonna start writing this flat HDF5 file, and with all the observations that we got, we're gonna need to insert some data buckets in there. So it's the binary. It's going to be a compressed binary file. It's going to be the one file that contains everything, including the image information, the key presses, and everything. But it's going to have to be ordered in a certain way, because for the packing to work, we need to make all the buckets like have the same structure, same data structure. All right. So how do we work with this? Well, I'm definitely going to get that write block like this here, and I'm appending, and I'm still not sure if that's what we want to do. I'm still not sure that I want this to be resumable, essentially. I don't know if it's going to work or not. All right, so once we're done with all this, we have our observations, so we can break out of this entire loop, and we're going to first work within the context of this frame input. But I would rather call it something perhaps a little different now. Maybe like input recording, because that's kind of like what we call the feature anyways. And everything's going to happen within the context of this. This h55 file totally behaves like a file like in Python. So if we use a context manager on it, it's going to close the file when it's done. You have to manage that. And let's see how we were kind of getting there, really. Because there's all this, but there's stuff we don't need to do anymore. Like the PNG compression is already taken care of, so that's something that's gone. That's even easier now. So I think I'm gonna bring in everything. I think we're gonna bring in everything, but we're gonna start like customizing this to our new way of doing things. That's probably the safest way to go about this. All right, so I am tracking. I'm keeping track of I here. Which I do I need to do that anymore? I guess I do, because I'm extracting some items from observations. Yeah. So if I'm doing this, I won't have an index. So I will track I outside. So I'll say observations here. Dot items. And what do we get when we do this? What's the key? What's the value? The key is the timestamp still as a float. And then we have the data, the observation itself. And maybe I can call it observation, because data was already used earlier. Okay. Okay, so here we have a timestamp, we have an observation. Perfect. And we're also going to be keeping track of an eye. The eye is going to be useful for doing stuff like writing progress out to the terminal. So we're going to do that. We're going to clear the terminal and give some sort of like progress meter or bar. I think I am missing out on one thing too. Yeah, it's the initial print that starts at 0. Anything else? No, that's pretty much it. So there is an initial print here that will be like, hey, you know, I'm gonna write this out, and it's now input recording. So this one is just a matter of retrofitting whatever we had done previously and in the previous like prototype, because most of that stuff still applies. And instead of using the len of this, it's gonna be the len of observations. All right, so writing frame input, or writing recorded input data to data sets input recording.h5, fine. Then we're working with input recording.h5, cool. And then here, same thing. We're just gonna change that to recorded input data to data sets input recording. And this is the progress indicator, so it's using I to give some sort of progress indication, because we need to know this is going to write stuff perhaps for a long time if you've recorded for a long time. So we need to have some sort of like progress estimation. So that's what we're doing with this. All right, so input recording, and then it's going to be I+1 len of observations. Let me get that in there. Okay, and I was unpacking the observation after that. So one thing I can do is still do something similar to this. What I'll call it is the game frame buffer. Buffer. Game frame buffer. The second one would be the inputs, yes indeed. And then it would be the actives, and then it would be the reward function, or the reward score rather, sorry. And I'm extracting this out of observation, singular. All right, so I'm just literally like unpacking a variable. I was printing stuff perhaps for debugging purposes. I don't think we need that really. We just did the reward thing, so that's also gone. We also did the frame transformation stuff, or the frame. So we're kind of good here. We're kind of good. And we can just write to the file like straight up. So I have to create different data sets. Like I said, it's a packed binary file. So for it to be efficient, like the information needs to be grouped up together, following similar you know, like structures and data types, like that. So you can't just like, you can mix them up technically. You can make like unions and stuff like that, but you can't insert another item that doesn't have the same exact ordering of types. That's gonna fuck up. So normally with Python, you don't have to worry with that stuff, but now you're working with this protocol, like for the binary file, and you have to respect that. So I had 4, which is kind of makes sense, because I also have 4 items in my observation. I have the game frame buffer, the inputs, the actives, and the reward score. So let's see how can it really work. Can it really work? Can I just do like timestamp, which I have here from this, and instead of PNG frames, I would have to go inside my game frame buffer and perhaps like do a bit of a list comp. So for frame in game frame buffer, game frame buffer dot frames, and that's going to give me game frame objects. And I could technically call it game frame just to kind of understand what's the scope. And then I would want to get, since this is PNG stuff, I would want to get the frame bytes out of the game frame object. So I would do game frame.frame bytes like this. And they're already bytes, so I don't need to encode anything. But for some of the strings, like as you see here, we'll have to encode some information. Because this thing communicates in bytes. I can't just like put in a string. That's not gonna work. But these images, right? These frames, they're gonna be they're going to be like bytes already, so I don't need to worry about that. Okay, cool. So I'm extracting the frames out of the buffer, and I'm saying for every one of those, like make well, yeah, append an object, like an item in that list using the frame bytes, and that frame bytes is not going to be, is only going to be filled if we're using the PNG part of the frame transformation pipeline. But that's going to happen because when you're recording, it automatically appends that to your transformation pipeline. Okay, so the frames, I think we're good. Frames were good, and then we have to consider the inputs. What's going to happen with that? Okay, so what we have with the inputs, well, we're working with a different structure than we had here, but it's somewhat similar. I mean, like there is a list comp here that's going to go over. Yeah, so my inputs, what's different this time around is the inputs are a dictionary, if I recall correctly. They're a dictionary that starts with a key name, that has the key name as the key, and then the duration as the duration as the value. So I think I just have to do dot items, really, on inputs, and then it's going to give me the key name, I think I'll call it, just to be a little shorter and respect our previous notation. So the inputs dot items, that's going to be, well, the key is going to be the key name, and then the value is going to be the duration, and then I have to encode these things, right? I have to actually encode these things because they're strings, they're not bytes. So I have to use the key, wow, key name, like this, dot encode with UTF-8. Cool, so it's going to give me bytes, and it's a tuple. It's a list of tuples that I'm generating, and the duration here needs to be converted to a string first, because it's still in that structure it's still a float, and then we encode that to UTF-8. We'll have to parse that back in when we read the file. That's going to be one thing we'll need to do. Okay, so that's it for inputs. The actives are a list. They're just a list. So all I'll do is go over the actives. I'll do the key name, and I'll make sure that they're converted. They're all encoded like that. So that's an easy one. Everything's easy at this point. We're done, essentially. We're just done. Like, we're gonna be able to create this file now. It's gonna kick ass. All right, key name encode UTF-8 key, yep, and actives, and then finally the reward score. Well, we can just store it straight up, so that's a super easy one too. And I think we named it reward score when we were unpacking. Yes. And I+1 because we're keeping track of our progress. That's good stuff. I was just like clearing some data. I think I was resetting a few data structures, and I would say it would be done, and then it would sleep. So that's it. So what do we want to reset in case we would want to resume this thing? The only thing I can see myself resetting is the game frames. That's pretty much the only thing that we have in the scope of the instance here. So when we go to the setup function for the recording, we have this game frame buffers list. I would probably reset that to make it empty because we did dump all the frame buffers in there. The process itself is still there. The offsets, that doesn't change. Yeah, now that's it. That's the only thing we need to reset. It's not that bad. So instead of doing this guy, we're going to do it with this. And then I would say I'm done. Maybe I would want to like sleep for a little. Okay, so what's tricky at this point? What's tricky at this point is the way we currently do the pause stuff. Yeah, it's a little tricky because it's not just running the pause callback once. It's actually calling it every time we enter a new frame in the game agent, and it's actually paused. It's actually focused out of the game. So I don't know how we would resume from that. First of all, let's make sure that when it runs this thing, it will exit like right away. If it doesn't have the keyboard, like if we have 0 keyboard events and 0 frames. Yeah, because we just reset that. Then we have 0 data. Maybe we could exit this or sleep if we have 0 data. That would be kind of something we could add. So the len of data is nothing. So if not len of data, we could just like sleep and return. Right, time to sleep for like a second or something, and return none. That's one additional check that we can do here. And eventually it will feed it a frame, and then it's going to say, hey, the focus is back on the game, so we're not paused anymore. Therefore, it's just not going to do anything in here. It's going to stop doing whatever it was doing there. It should return to recording. And if we return to recording, all it does really is start appending new game frame buffers. And we are also done with handle record. It's going to feel really, really good to delete this guy. This was the previous complicated logic. Like, we used to do this like when recording. Now when we're recording, we're just doing this. It's going to feel so good. Oh. That one is gone. And we also have a previous way of handling stuff when we're pausing, and it was this here. We can also get rid of this. All right, and I used to sleep when I was done. Maybe I could just do like a time sleep 1, and that's it. And then eventually we'll either resume or someone's going to control C this thing. I think it's time to try it. I know it seems pretty massive, but oh yeah, no, this is not a thing. Wait. All right, this is still broken. The reward function. How do I get the frames in there? I don't remember how I was working with these, like in the reward function, when I'm accepting frames. Were they supposed to be game frame objects, like an array of these? Not exactly sure. Well, this one is not really useful. It's the test one, but I think I had perhaps the one that chat named last time. That was called, in the game agent, it was called depth is bad, I think. Something like that. Yeah, depth is bad, frames and inputs, right? So that's what I said I was getting. And I was saying latest frame. I was passing the latest frame to game API is game over. So I still want to work my way there, because I want to know, was that a game frame object? So when I say is game over, yeah, it was a game frame object. Perfect. So I can then pass the correct information. And I don't think I need the inputs, right? That's definitely something that's, like, see, we're not even using it. Like I said, the inputs themselves are not really relevant to a reward function in reinforcement learning. So I don't know why I was planning to pass the inputs. It's a little weird. I can fix this. Where's that test reward test? Let's get rid of inputs. And when I'm sending this, I'm going to also not do this. And then I'm going to do game frame buffer dot frames. All right, so that's going to be an array of game frame objects, which is what we want. Okay, that's fixed. And I can probably remove like the structure of my observation at this point. Oh, it's item in this scope. It's item. There you go. I believe that's it. I believe that's it. I think we can try it. We can actually try to record and get a file back. And then what I'll do, if it all works perfectly, doesn't crash or anything, we're going to start working in the notebook and try to read information from that file. Right? It's going to be interesting to see how we can consume this information too. Now, I'm not planning to ship this next version that we're about to ship. I'm not planning to ship that with a reading module yet, because people can still parse and work with an HDF5, no problem. So I'm not planning to necessarily ship a reader module, but for sure in the future it would be something that would be nice to have, like something that can bring in the information in that file as like a Python like object or something. Okay, let's go. A little bit of a Monka S moment, a little stressful. We'll see if it works or not. All right. So I'm recording. I'm going to be recording my gameplay in Cannonballs. All right, start playing the game. It says, well, let's do that. All right, so I'm just gonna play the game. That's it. That's all I have to do. When this feature is actually working and complete, that's all you have to do. All right, so you focus on the game. You just play the game however the game is played, and that's it. And when you're done collecting, of course, I'm not gonna play it for an extended period of time. But when you're done, you just focus out, and it allegedly would write that file to disk, because we did it, we would have done it the right way. So I'm gonna do it for a little while, just so we have some observations in that file if it does write successfully. That's probably a mistake there. Like I should probably just like test right away if it writes without crashing. So let's try to die. Try is the keyword. There you go. Okay, and I'm gonna. That was fucking impressive, dude. It did it in like a second. All right, no crashes, no nothing. Hopefully there is data in that file and I didn't fuck up anything. So let's go to Serpent.AI, which is my user space, and I have input recording. I can remove the old one, and I have 7.5 megs. So it is definitely, there is data in there. G fucking G right there. So input recording H5 has all like some information, like 7.5 megs worth of information. Let's see what's in there. Let's go into the notebook and start reading that file. Before I do that, I'm probably just gonna go get some water and make a coffee. But yeah, we can start working our way there and then start reading that file. That's gonna be interesting. Let's just do import H5 by. Nice warnings. I don't really, no, it's okay. I don't really care for your warnings. And we're going to just go read the file. That's it. We're just going to open it. Like we're going to do a context manager like we did, but this time around we're going to read it. So let's go. I can steal that from our little code base here. I can go and say, where is it? This one. We can bring this to the notebook. So let's do that. I'm going to try to buffer it a bit because it's at the bottom of the screen. It might be a little hard to see. Like this. All right. All right, so that's my context manager. I am actually going to open this, but I'm going to be reading it this time as F. And F becomes that H5 file object. And I could start like listing out, for example, the keys and stuff like that. So I think the best way to work with this would probably be to go and consult another notebook. I don't know if I can do that, man. I don't know. I don't think I can go to a parent. That's probably not going to work. Unfortunately, that the notebook that has all the information for the H5 stuff is in the other directory. But I can, yeah, we can do it. Just give me a sec. Let's say this we shut down. You don't really see it. It's behind the overlays, but it doesn't matter. I'm gonna go to the project EC folder instead of Serpent.AI, and in that list of notebooks, we'll have one that already has some snippets for that HDF5 manipulation. All right, so it launched this guy and notebooks, and I think there's untitled here. And it should have, yeah, there we go. That's the one. That's the one. All right. So if you want to, for example, list out in that, you know, that specific frame input, which is different now. It's called input recording. I can copy. Well, I don't even need to copy. We're gonna just work our way here. Okay. So H5. The file is now input recording. .h5. Red, yeah, nice. For all the keys in f.keys, we could just print them out, for example. Yeah. Horizon Psi, what up? Thank you for that host. I appreciate it. Hope you guys had a good time over there. I don't know. I think it was an astronomy lecture tonight. I hope that was good. I'm really sad that I'm missing them. That's one thing I would say. I seem to always be on when this is happening. I'd love to see them. But welcome. Thank you for the host. Appreciate it. Horizon Psi, if you don't know, is also part of Brain Bites. It does astrophysics stuff. And if I'm saying it wrong, you do correct me, please. But if you prefer to be presented in some different way. But yeah, he does that. So if that's your jam, there is content like that on Twitch. And it's actually pretty cool. It's actually cool. Like more personal, I would say. Like lectures, but maybe just not as formal as a lecture, but still lecture material with chat interaction. It's good stuff. Should check it out. Okay, so keys, and I'm just gonna print a key. I was about to go make a coffee or something, but we can definitely confirm that we're doing this okay. Yeah, look at that stuff. That's definitely the data we just wrote by recording our gameplay. So that's pretty freaking awesome, including reward and everything. So that's what. I'm actually impressed by. I'm actually really happy myself here because that's pretty cool. Can I print out the values of all the keys? That's going to be obnoxious if it's a... okay, so let's do if key is not a frame one, because that's going to be obnoxious if I print them all out, because that's going to be all the... That's going to be all the bytes of the PNGs of the frame sequences at that point in time, and it's just going to... like, it's probably going to crash the notebook even. So let's not do that. So if it's not, right, so if key dot ends with, or if not key dot ends with, let's do, what is it, frames? All right, so let's not touch that. And if it's not that, I can print F where it's key and call the dot value on that. Like this. There you go. All right, so you'll have some information. This is definitely a dense representation of everything that happened. So there's going to be like cases where you have empty pieces of data. But as we scroll down, you'll see that it was definitely recorded at some point in time that there was a key press associated with that. I'm not showing the frames because, like I said, it's going to show the bytes. It's not going to show the images. That would be a little obnoxious. It would be hard to see anything. But you can see at that point in time, technically there is a sequence of frames that's attached to this. We at that point in time, when I was recording my own gameplay, I pressed space for 0.26399 seconds. Right? And then the next set of frames, I didn't press space, but space was still down. So in the third item of that tuple, that observation, it still says that key was still pressed, right? Because that's another piece of information that's useful for machine learning, right? Depending on how your inputs are sent to the environment, you might have a system that's a bit like tolerant, and if you say you should be pressing space when you see this sort of like context, you can have a smarter system that, like, when you're sending inputs, that says, hey, but space is already pressed, so I'm just going to keep holding it down instead of just pressing it again. All right, so this is the sort of information you can kind of work with. And then as you see, like, this is technically like recording, my recording of the gameplay. This is my dense representation, and it has to be a dense representation, and I've said that before. Why? Because no input in machine learning is also input, right? So if you're doing nothing with a sequence of frames, that's just as valid an input as doing something like on the keyboard. There's nothing that's not input, right? The input itself is the visual data, and if you know that the input is not the key presses or the inputs, the input to your neural net is visual data. So it doesn't matter if there's a key press or not. Like there needs to be an observation for an empty set of visual information. Now, if I want to do something similar but show the show the images, because that's something, of course, we want to validate that we're getting right. Let's try to find that first space here. But instead of just printing the key and the value, we're also going to print the timestamp. So essentially, it's going to be printing the key on top of that. So let's rerun this again. So see, now it's printing also the key on top of that. So let's try to find the first space that was pressed in that representation, and then I can just like steal this guy here. This is the part that's relevant. And I think I have a snippet that can look at the images already. It doesn't look like this. Could it be this one? Frames is an image read on an IO bytes for the frame data. Very, very possible, except frame data is coming from where? So okay, I said it before there. I'm about to show you also that we can read the images in there, right? So this 7.2 meg file that we have actually has like a full recording, including some image data of what I did in that game, in that short period of time I played it. And then it should be very good at handling like longer playthroughs. So if you want to record your gameplay for like an hour, 2 hours, of course we're gonna have to stress that. We're gonna see if it works, but I don't see a reason why it would not, because the fact that the compression, the PNG compression, is in place in the pipeline, we don't have to worry about the RAM so much. And since even if it grows to be a large structure, we also don't have to worry about like performance, because we're doing it after the fact, right? So when we capture what's going on, the players playing the game, we're technically just caring about like storing the frames as fast as we can, and then having a separate process just record the keys as it sees them. And after the fact, we're reconciling the information, building that static data set. So performance is not even that much of a worry, but I don't know if you saw it earlier, if you were there, but when I recorded it and I dumped it, it took less than a second to record like maybe like 2 minutes of gameplay. So it's really, really fast. I just want to try to show the images that were in scope with that. I mean, I already have. Yeah, I think I can go here. That's it. All right, so that's gonna be input recording. This one's gonna work for me. Sorry. All right, input recording. And I used to call that UUID. Now it's a timestamp. Essentially the same thing, really. That we can still keep this. And then I was extracting the frame data. Let's try that. Is it gonna work? There we fucking go. There we go, right? So how do we know that this one's really hard to see? This one's really, really hard to see. But I could show individual instead of showing. So I'm just showing that I have a frame context of what happened, what led to the key press of space. Let me try to show one at a time instead. Let me try to do image show on frames 0. That's going to probably display a little bigger. Yeah, see? So it is not a full res, like you may notice that. That's something that's in control, that you can control as the user. So I'm resizing whatever I was capturing in my game, I'm resizing that automatically to 100 by 100 grayscale, because I'm making the assumption, I'm kind of like formulating the hypothesis that's going to be enough, like clarity, depth for my neural network to make out the different features. But it's a highly personal thing, and a highly like subjective thing. It has to be like per game. You have to say, so for some game this sort of downscaling might not work, or it might be even too much, right? So you have to really like evaluate the graphical complexity of your frames and decide if you're losing out on too many features, or if you're feeding it too much. Because if you're feeding it too much, you're exploding the mathematical space of this thing, right? So if I'm feeding like 300 by 300 instead of 100 by 100, or if I'm doing 100 by 100 but colors, the mathematical space just all of a sudden got like so much more complicated. So your neural nets, like if you want them to actually like eventually converge and do stuff with it, like the mathematical space needs to be reasonable, right? So it's not that it's impossible to converge like a larger space. It's just that it's going to take you forever, right? It's going to take you so long that you're going to start thinking that your actual setup or algorithm is broken, right? So one of the good skills that you can have when you're doing this sort of deep learning stuff is definitely to know, to try to strike the sweet spot, right? Find the sweet spot of enough information to make out features, but not too much that you're making the mathematical space too complicated, right? And in this case, like that's kind of like my test here. I'm saying, hey, you know what? Like from Canabalt, I can probably just do 100 by 100 grayscale. So the aspect ratio is not 1-to-1. I am kind of like scrunching it. So why am I doing that? Because these square images, they actually work a little better with convolutions. Right? It's just a little easier. It's not that it doesn't work with other aspect ratios. It's just that it's been kind of like demonstrated that it works quite good. Because there's no padding to be done. There's no nothing like that. It just works. Okay, so that's the one. And so that's the first thing it saw. That's not where I press space. However, now if you keep going, you'll see that it looks like it's the same thing, but pay attention to the background of the doors, or I don't know if it's water coolers or doors. But see, they're not at the same space. So clearly we're seeing a sequence of frames that's relatively close to one another, right? And then on the last one, you'll notice that the character is in the air, right? So on that frame 2, which is essentially the third one in the sequence, that's where the key was pressed. That's the closest thing that we can associate the key press with, right? That's the closest thing we can associate this. It's not project. No, it's framework. It's framework. It's framework. There's one. Project is not a command anymore. It's when we were doing the game thing. Yeah, so this is where, like, this is exactly where I'm aligning my my key presses when I'm doing the merging of the events. Like it's that, like that before last frame. So this is probably where the key press happened, and you can see the result of that in the leading, like the following frame, because you see, hey, the character is in the air. So I think our lining up of frames with keyboard events is actually working out super awesome. And I think we got it, man. That's it. Like, I think we finally have it. This thing can record gameplay from the keyboard, at least. The mouse is another ball game. We'll get there eventually. But we can record all the keyboard events right now, and from any game. And I don't know, maybe we want to work with another game to show that it's possible to do that. And you can customize everything using the input, the frame transformation pipeline. So if you go to your game plugin, right? So in this case, it's one for Cannibalt, because that's what I'm using as a test here. You'll see I have this this little pipeline here. This is where I define, right? This is essentially where I say, you know what, like, you're gonna get these full resolution frames, but what I'd like to work with, if I request something from the pipeline and not the full res, is something that is resized to 100 by 100, then converted to grayscale, and then converted to a to values that are floats between 0 and 1, because that's good stuff for deep learning, for neural nets, right? You don't want to work with for example, like uints 8 for example, like, so 0 to 255, because these will cause like more massive swings to the gradients when you're doing the gradient descent, right? The back prop. So if it's bigger values, it causes bigger swings, and then that affects the stability of your neural net too much, right? So if you work with smaller values, it causes like smaller swings. It causes it to be stable, a little more stable at least. Hey, we're just trying to put, like, our chances, all the good stuff that we can do. We're trying to put the the odds on our side. But I can tweak this. I can tweak this. I can do what I want. If I want to work with 200 by 200, I could. If I want to rescale instead of specifying some actual values, I could. If I want to work with color, I could. Like, it's totally free for all. You have to kind of like make up the case that works the best for your specific scenario, right? And I kind of want to show. There's a part of me that wants to do that, so maybe I can install a little game on Steam while I'll make that coffee and get some water, because I've been saying that I'll do that for the last 30 minutes. I still haven't done it. But maybe you could look at the Steam at Steam here. I think there's a lot of games here that are actually installed on my other PC, and it's just going to offer to stream them, sadly. All right, so it's going to say stream, which is probably not a good thing. I would have to find something that's actually installed. Local. Okay, local is probably the best. What would be good here? Maybe Super Hexagon. Maybe we can go back to Super Hexagon just for fun. Just to see, because Super Hexagon is typically played from the keyboard. So that would be something we could try. So from scratch, just to show that we can record gameplay in any game. and end up having a static, like an actual like one packed binary file with all the information, I'll do that. I'll just start playing a game from scratch that we've never really like. We've worked with it, but not in that context before. So you'll see me prepare the pipeline and make sure that, you know, like just by using what I have in the framework at that point in time, I can get a full recording in a file. But before I do that, I will get some water and a coffee. I'm gonna give you guys full screen doggo in the meantime, and I'll be back. All right, just like less than 5 minutes guaranteed. Just making a coffee. All right, I'm back. I'm back. Welcome back. Thank you for sticking around. Oh. Fresh coffee in hand. We're gonna try to do this thing. We're gonna pretend like we're a user of the framework, and we kind of are. But we're gonna really pretend this time for real that we're a user of the framework, and I'm gonna make it work with like Super Hexagon, and we're essentially gonna try to record gameplay for Super Hexagon. Right, so we're still a while out to be using this thing and provide examples of how to use that data, but making this file, recording gameplay, and making a static, like a binary file with all the information needed to build these machine learning data sets. That's a pretty good achievement. It's a pretty good achievement out of the box, like right there, out of the gate, like just the first thing. The natural evolution of this thing, what's likely to happen is there's a good chance in the next version I'm gonna make a like a file or a module to read this, right, and bring into the context into context as an object, so you can just consume this and not have to parse it yourself like I'm doing here with some H5Py operations. And then once we can read it, I can probably start working on some examples on how to use this with machine learning models, right? But everything in due time. So let's work with Super Hexagon. Let's do it, right? So let's see first of all if there's already a plugin for it in our user space. There might be. If not, we're going to create one. And I don't have one, so let's do it. You guys are going to get to see a bit of a demo of some of the stuff in Serpent.AI too, so that's not too bad. Before I do anything, I'm going to absolutely make sure that I am working with, okay, Steam is, that's what's happening. Okay, there we go. So I can close out this guy. And I'm gonna literally, like, we don't have anything for Super Hexagon. It is installed locally through Steam. So like I said, I'm gonna try to pretend like I'm a framework user, and you'll get to see a few of the stuff that we can do with the framework. How do we support a game, stuff like that. How do we add support? You'll see adding support for a game is actually like really surprisingly easy. I want to just get a little more room here, and I'm trying to see, how can I? Okay, like this. Okay. So I'll just build a package to be safe, just to make sure that's the latest one I'm working with. Then what we're going to do is, first of all, we need a plugin for that to support the game. So the first thing we need when you want to work with Serpent.AI, if you don't already have someone that's provided a game plugin for you, you'll have to create one. So I'll do Serpent generate. It's a good test. It's a good test for my memory, because I haven't done that in a while. So I'm gonna try to go like from memory, but I might have to consult the docs myself. But I think it's Serpent generate game. That's the first thing you do. That's how you would add support for a game. There is some stuff, but it's not necessarily we see it all. And then it's asking what's the name of the game, titleized, no spaces, i.e. like awesome. Okay, so we're gonna do Super Hexagon. So there is code generation, by the way. There is code generation it's gonna kind of carry you a little bit. Right, just give you a nice like skeleton to work from. That was not part of the plan. All right, Super Hexagon. How is the game launched? Steam executable web browser. That's what we have so far, but I can imagine a future where we have like emulation stuff, for example. It's not that emulation is not supported right now, but you would have to kind of like extend executable a bit to bring it in. So if we have people that work with emulation or Android, I didn't bring it back. Are you fucking kidding me, Corbob? God damn it, dude. Good point. Good point. Crossbow, not Corbob. Crossbow. I didn't bring it back. Good point. Good to see that people are actually paying attention. Fuck. Now, you didn't miss much. You didn't miss much. All I did is Serpent generate game, and it's asking me these questions here. So you didn't miss anything, really. And I answered Super Hexagon, and then Steam. But like I said, there's a world I can imagine in the future where it would support like more stuff. Like some people are interested in Android right now. So of course it would have to be done through Android emulation. But I'm really looking to see and work with someone that's like willing to commit to that, and maybe we can add like official Android emulation support, like console emulation. I'm down also, but right now we have Steam executable, which covers a lot of cases, and web browser. So if you want to play a web game, you can probably create a plugin for it. But in this case, I'm going to say Steam because Super Hexagon is Steam. And it's just going to install a plugin like this, right? It's going to install a plugin, and that generates some code. We're going to see what it actually generated this year, right? So it generated all of that stuff for us. The PyCache, I think, is just there because some stuff got executed along the way. It even has like a little git ignore, and it has everything. So this thing you can commit as, like, if you want to, you can commit this like straight up. Right, and share that plugin with other people. So I made this kick-ass Super Hexagon game plugin. You might want to use it. Right, so you can commit this, and there are a few samples like that in the GitHub repo. So if you go to Just give a sec. It's actually pretty big. If you go to Serpent.AI here, the organization, not just the repo, you'll see that there are some stuff like this, right? So it's totally possible for you to ship a game plugin, and all you really have to do is make a repo inside of that plugin that got generated from the framework, and send that over to something like GitHub, and that's it, right? That's it. So sharing this stuff, the work that you're doing as plugins, is actually pretty easy. And now we're gonna see what it generated, and try to add some stuff perhaps. So there is a plugin definition file. You shouldn't really have to touch that too much, right? That was mostly used to install the plugin and everything. So that's mainly automated. You don't have to focus on that stuff. If you go to files, you'll see that there is a Serpent Super Hexagon game file here. There's a bit of like extra spaces that you can kind of clean up just because it's code generation. I didn't particularly like focus too much on that stuff, but it's giving you a lot to go on. It's gonna give you, like all of that stuff, like samples for OCR, sample like structures for OCR, samples structures for screen regions. It's gonna put your API that you can extend in scope. And then it kind of prepares some of the information you need for Steam support, right? So if I one thing I need to do when I want to support a Steam game is specify its app ID. So there's a couple of ways to do that. Super easy one is just to perhaps like find the game on the Steam store. So Super Hexagon. All right. And the ID is right here, 221.640. All right, so I need this information to launch it from Steam. So you have to replace app ID with this. And then the window name is, if you want to focus on that thing, you have to use the proper window name. The best way to do this, there's a utility that might sound stupid, but depending on the platform you're on, because Serpent.AI does support like Windows, Mac, and Linux, what you need to enter there might be a little different. So what I did is I provided a utility that gives you the proper value that you need to put in there. And the way you get that value is by running the game first manually. Right, so I'm going to launch it from Steam. I don't want to go full screen. Fuck. I don't want to also... I don't want to exit it either. Come on, dude. Where are my options for this? Can I, change to window. Thank you. All right. And I can minimize Steam. The utility is just Serpent. Everything goes through the Serpent executable, essentially. So you just do Serpent window underscore name. It's going to tell you to press any key and then focus the game window and wait a bit. So I'm going to focus the game window. And see, now it says this is the value you need to put in. Now it might seem super obvious because on Linux it's essentially just going to always be the name of the window, but in some other OSs like Mac OS, for example, it is not just that. So the safest way to get the proper value for this is to run the window name thing, and that way you can just put it in. You just replace window name with this here, right? So it says platform Steam, Super Hexagon, the window name, app ID is this. If you have any sort of like launch args, we support extra launch args through Steam. All right, so if you have like specific things that the game supports, it's pretty advanced. I mean, most people don't even do that with their own Steam games, like when they're playing them, but it's possible to do stuff. The reason we added that is because with the Binding of Isaac, actually, so I want to know historically why we did that. Is the Binding of Isaac, like to run custom levels, you have to run some, like some command line args as you launch Isaac, right? So if you add stuff to this, it will launch it through Steam, but with these args, and then it has like a Super Hexagon. So that's all I did. Like I just generated the game. I said it's Super Hexagon. I figured out what the window name is. I put in the Steam ID, and I can already launch. Right, I can already launch the game through the Serpent framework at that point in time. So I can say Serpent launch. Serpent launch, whoops, Super Hexagon, and provided that you did everything correctly here, it should launch it for you. But it's going to do some useful stuff like putting it at the like the top left like this. The convention in the framework is always to use the top left as your anchor point. it could technically like find it anywhere and just capture it, but it's just like, for me, it's easier to have it at the top left because it gives me room on the same desktop to position some other stuff, right? So if I expect it to go top left, it's always going to be like that. Now this resolution doesn't seem to be something you can change. I don't know if it's just a Linux thing, but it doesn't seem like you can't. It's either like you do full screen or not. And if you don't do it full screen, you're kind of like stuck. I'm gonna assume that there's probably like a config file that you can tweak somewhere if you want to have a different resolution. But for just like this demo, I think we'll be fine. I don't think we need to do anything to get a bigger resolution. What's up, Teddy? Caught you live again. Yes. Pretty good time to catch me live because we actually shipped I think I finally nailed the input recording. So there's an active feature right now that I was working on that was providing a general way, like technically a way that would work with any game or web game or whatever, to record a player input that's playing a game. So you run a command, a Serpent command in the command line, and you can just play the game for however long you want. And when you focus out, it actually will associate all the key presses with frames, run some reward functions, and assemble all that into a nice HDF5 file on the disk. And I'm about to show that it works by creating this plugin from scratch for Super Hexagon. Right? So it did launch it. That's pretty much all we want right now. There's not a lot to add to this thing because we want to record essentially, right? So there's not a lot to add there. But I'm gonna have to generate a game agent too. I'm gonna take the shortest path I can take to recording stuff. I'm gonna say Serpent generate game underscore agent, right? And then it's gonna ask me some questions again. What is the name of the game agent? So I can say Super Hexagon. I don't think I need to say game agent. I don't remember that part, honestly. I think I can say Super Hexagon straight up and it's gonna work. And that's it, right? It's gonna do a bunch of shit for me. And now we can go and look at our code again, and it will have generated, that's it. I didn't need to say game agent like this, right? So it generated a second type of plugin. This one is not the same as the other one. This one is a game agent plugin. And essentially the only thing I'm going to start modifying in there is nothing. Nothing. To record gameplay, I don't need to modify anything in there. Essentially, I don't need to modify anything in there. But I could do a reward function type of thing. We'll see if we feel like this today. Okay. So once I generated that, I don't necessarily need to do anything for the recording to work, because I can just specify this thing straight up, and it should work. One thing that's going to be missing here is my transformation pipeline. That's something that's not really documented right now, but you can definitely use. So I'm going to grab a sample according to what I did for Cannibalt. All right, so something like this. The reason it was not documented is because I did not really consider this like to be super solid yet. I think this time around, when we release this version that's going to be coming up, I think we're going to be solid enough to do this. I think I'm going to be able to say, like, you know what, the transformation pipeline totally works, and we can kind of like document it so people can figure it out. So maybe I could edit, if I want to do that, what I just said. Maybe one thing I could do is edit my template when we generate these things. We do the code generation for our game plugin or game agent plugin to perhaps include a commented out like block that looks a little like this, right? And then you can kind of tweak it for your own usage there. So let's say I'm going to copy this, right? I'm going to go back to my Super Hexagon game plugin, this guy, and we're going to drop in the frame transformation pipeline. Like I said, like eventually this is going to be kind of like provided as a commented out thing, or essentially this is just a string. It's a bit of a string DSL where you can kind of specify chained operations you want to perform on the full resolution frames. And it's going to store them in a separate bucket that's going to be called like pipeline. So the full res frames are always available in full, and whatever you kind of like assemble yourself here as a pipeline of transformations, that's going to be available under pipeline. And if there is a pipeline, the recording will try to use it. All right, so normally if you're working with neural nets, you don't want to work with like a full res, full color image. You're going to try to like size it down substantially if you can. So maybe we can use the same thing as we were using for Cannibalt, right? So use like maybe like 100 by 100 grayscale float. That's it. And I think I'm ready to start trying to record my gameplay in Super Hexagon. And that's it. Let's try that. Can close a few things here. Okay, so it's here. It's already launched. We can exit the options. I can even start from the menu. It doesn't really matter, right? So let's do it. Let's just say sudo serpent record super hexagon with serpent super hexagon game agent. So through this. So why do I specify a game agent for this? It's mostly if you need to you register like reward functions for your stuff. So if you're trying to do some reinforcement learning stuff, like you might want to register custom reward functions for stuff that you'll see come in. And by specifying the name of the game agent here, it'll be able to see those registered reward functions. All right, so that's pretty much it. Let's go. See how that works. It's a totally different game. So the ultimate test to see if what we built is something that can be applied to different different games. Yeah, so it says start playing the game, focus out when you're done. All right, let's go. So I'm gonna play the game. I'm gonna say, yeah. I'm gonna try to play the game better than this. God damn, that was. I forgot how sensitive this thing is. Like when playing with the keyboard. Holy shit, dude. And it kind of brings a smile to my face to use this game, because it used to be, well, it was the game that kind of started the interest around like doing stuff like the framework. So it's kind of fun to go back to a game like this. And I can play it for an extended period of time. It doesn't really matter, right? Because technically my feature here should be more than able to handle this sort of information that we're throwing at it. All right. So I'm going to play it. I'm going to try to... I would love to beat the level, but I highly doubt I would even manage to do something like that. It's been a while since I played this. Who's played this game? I'm sure like some of you guys have played this game before. Ah. All right. Let's call it. Let's say this is enough for our test. There you go. It has just written 870 observations to the HDF5 file. All right, and if I can choose to Control C out here, and now I can go back to my notebook. Now keep in mind, I just did that in what, like less than 30 minutes, right? I just like said, hey, support Super Hexagon and record my gameplay. In like less than 30, maybe even less than 15. So let's go and look at the file, because we can go in our notebook. Right? We can go in our notebook like we were doing a second ago and use the same snippets essentially. Let's read out all the values that are not frames. I can probably remove the key for now. Did I press space for real? Oh, I know what I did. I made a mistake. Well, a bit of a mistake. I didn't clear out the file. It's set to append new information. So you'll see eventually you see some left-right stuff probably. But yeah, it is set to append new information to it. Yeah, see key right, key right. Okay, that's a mistake I made. Let's do it again. Why not? Playing Super Hexagon is not a pain in the ass. It's something I can handle. So let's clean this up. And it's a bit of a user error. That's my own error. It's not the framework. So maybe I want to set it to just always write. But the problem with that is if I pause and I go back to play some more, then it would wipe all of the other stuff. So I haven't really made a decision yet on how I want to handle that. So let's say I go back to the menu for a second, and let's make one that's gonna be just Super Hexagon, not a mix of two games. I'm gonna wait for it to tell me that it's good to play the game. All right, there you go. Start playing the game. So I'm gonna start playing the game. I'm gonna say go. Let's use this level, and that's all I do really. Like I don't have to like be preoccupied by anything. I can just like play the game as I normally do. As you can see, it's not really having any sort of impact on performance or anything, right? So I'm leveraging, of course, probably like some different cores with these processes. So it's not affecting any sort of. Oh, that was kind of bad. Now, do you guys believe that we could teach an agent to play Super Hexagon with this player recording thing? Because I think that's a valid question at this point. That would be interesting to think about, right? You think that by using this player recording feature that we're adding, we could get it to learn to play a bit of Super Hexagon? Because this game, I would tend to say something like more of a yes than a no, but at the same time, it's a very fast-paced game, so I don't know that it would necessarily be able to handle like the speed of this game. So I like I said, like maybe more of a yes than a no, but there's definitely fuck. I always get caught with this thing, and I know it's coming, and I just always it always gets me, man. Maybe you have to command S, right? Append. Yeah, it's I don't know. You mean like a hotkey, Crossbow? It doesn't really matter. I would have to give it like a bunch of gameplay for it to work, to figure out this stuff, but. There we go. We got kind of lucky with that one. Fuck. I don't know how you can play that and talk at the same time. It's well, I'm not playing exactly well. Let's just say that. Let's just say that. But yeah, no, I'm thinking it's possible to perhaps get some sort of results. Let's say I'm done. I focus out of the game. That's all I have to do. And now it's gonna write all the observations now. It just wrote like 1,300 observations. I'm gonna Control C out, and I can go back to my notebook. And let's try this again and make sure that everything that we get here. Yeah, see now it's really just like Super Hexagon stuff. So the sort of inputs that we're seeing is key left and key right. And this is pretty much all the information in there. Let's say I want to see some context around a key press here, right? I want to see the image, and that's all the information that we have in that HDF5, right? We have that. So let's say I want to say, hey, I pressed right for like 128 seconds here. Can you combine train on user input and on self-learning? Absolutely. That's one of the use cases, Crossbow, right? So one thing I can do is instead of let's say we want to do some reinforcement learning. Instead of starting from random weights in the neural network, one thing that we can do is just train it on that player input, because we do have support for reward functions. So I can reward frames that the player saw. I can actually give rewards for that. I can have the keys and the frame context, and also like the rewards. I can compute the reward. So if I can compute a reward, I can it's technically valid input, valid observations for that reinforcement learning thing. So what I can do is train it on that player input first. So yes, it is going to be coming from like always like a random initialization, but we're giving it a very clear direction with the player inputs. And then on top of that, we could start like a reinforcement learning experiment, or like implement some sort of algorithm there. And what that would give us is instead of doing like having to overcome and spend a lot of time overcoming like the randomness, now it's going to try to overcome or outplay the player, right? It's going to have the player input as a base instead of randomness. So it will try stuff randomly still. That's still a thing with reinforcement learning. There's exploration of the problem space, but it's not going to have to fight forever, right? It's not going to have to fight forever against the randomness. It's going to fight against the player. So if the player did something good, it's going to try like a bunch of random shit. It's going to follow the exploration policy that you set forward. And it will mostly fail to get as good as the player, but maybe eventually it's going to discover things that work even better, right? So you can definitely like augment your recording with self learning, like you said, so reinforcement learning, and that's the thing I'm looking forward to the most, honestly, with this feature that's coming in. Is like, can we make this somewhat easy to use in general with Serpent.AI, the framework? Because that would probably cause a lot of interest in the reinforcement learning sphere. If we can record player gameplay like super easily, like you just saw, like I did it. I just created a plugin for Super Hexagon to support the game. I created an empty plugin for the game agent. I did Serpent record. I played it, and that's it. I have my data set. Right. So if we can really do provide the tools to come back to something like this, to get this sort of information like super quickly, right? So if I keep appending tools to whatever we're doing right now, it might be really, really like feasible to kind of kickstart a reinforcement learning experiment based on player input in less than an hour. And that is big. That is a big deal. That is a big deal. And that's what I'm excited about with this feature. But some other stuff is fun too, right? So if you're not like that big on reinforcement learning or pushing deep learning far, you could still technically do some supervised learning on that set, right? You could just like collect a lot of observation from the player and make some sort of like machine learning model that will try to emulate the player as it plays the game. So there's two interesting features. One that's really interesting, like with reinforcement learning, the current state of research and pushing deep learning. But there's also one that's fun for most people to play around, right? It's actually pleasant for you to play around if you like if you just like record yourself and you can make a bit of a bot that plays like you. I think it's general like appeal in general. Like people are just gonna say like, this is fucking cool, right? I just trained a little bot to play like me by playing. That's it. So if we can ship these two features, and of course like I need what we're working on right now and shipping in this version as the foundation for this sort of stuff. It's looking pretty good, I gotta tell you. Maybe we're gonna get there. It's pretty exciting. Yeah, so the point is to fasten the AI. Absolutely, yes, steady. Because when you initialize a neural net, I think it's common knowledge that the weights are pretty random, right? That you're going to initialize like randomly. So what that means is that it will start out maybe in some positions that when it gets certain inputs visually, it will do the wrong thing, and it'll be friggin' certain about that wrong thing that it's doing. And to overcome that mistake, especially if the weight is really strong in a bad direction, that takes time, right? That takes time. Your learning rate needs to stay small. We talked about that in the previous stream. We kind of explained a bit like learning rate stuff. I did post an article also on the Discord. So if you're just like joining, you've never really you're interested in that sort of stuff, like programming, machine learning. I do have a Discord where we talk about all sorts of stuff. If you want to join that, and yeah, no, it actually talks about like learning rates. And overcoming that thing, like people get impatient and they kind of like just increase the learning rate. But the problem is after that, even though it does correct a little faster, it's going to be really hard to zero in on your sweet spot, right? So it's going to cause like a bit of an unstable machine learning like model, because you're going to be like oscillating. Like let's say the sweet spot is like dead in the center, but your learning rate is so big because you wanted to overcome that thing early on. That you'll never really settle on the sweet spot, because your unit of that you're moving by is too big, right? So if it's there and you only have to move like this, but your learning rate like makes it move like this, good luck to ever land on that spot, right? You're going to be oscillating. It's going to be a little unstable. All right. And I wanted to show you some frames. Like, that's the next thing. I want to say, like, okay, so we have this sort of information in the flat file, the HDF5. And I know that I pressed right. The player pressed right for, like I said, 0.12799 seconds. So microsecond precision, even more, perhaps. Right? But I want to get some more information. What was the context visually when that happened? So I can copy this key here in this snippet. And I do have a segment in my notebook that I can drop this key in, and it's gonna extract the visual information too. Now the visual information is gonna follow the pipeline, like I said, right? It's gonna follow the pipeline, so it's gonna be resized to 100 by 100 and grayscale. But what we're about to see is likely something that's coming from Super Hexagon, that's gonna be resized to 100 by 100 grayscale, and that should be the context that led to this key press to the right. So it's pretty interesting. Let's go. Let's run this. Let's put it to frame show collection first. And I'm going to make a second one that's commented out. That's going to be to look at individual frames. So let's do show on frames. It's 0. And this one I'm going to comment on for now. All right, so the collection. So there you go. So there you have it. I know it's pretty small. That's just a notebook. That's just how it works. But these are the 4 frames that were kind of like in context when that right key press happened. And the way I have it, my current logic for this, it's a little hard-coded right now, but I think it makes sense in a lot of scenarios, is I'm trying to clamp the precise timing of the key press event to the frame before last in the frame buffer. So this is a frame buffer. We have a bunch of frame buffers of 4 frames that we're storing periodically when we're recording. And after the fact, I reconcile 2 collections, like my key presses and also my frames, and I try to merge them in order of appearance using the timestamps. And after that, I'm trying to align these frames, right? Like when we're building the data set, I'm trying to align that stuff, and I align them with the frame before last. And I'll tell you why, because it shows you in this case, let's imagine 4 frames. It would align with that frame. So that is exactly the frame, as close as we can in terms of our collected information, that we can associate to me pressing that right key for 0.128 seconds. And it's with this one. But why? So why is it cool to have some other ones before? Well, it's the context, the visual context that led to me pressing this. So that's extremely relevant, especially for machine learning, neural networks. It's actually pretty interesting. To have more than 1 frame. Even humans, like if you I just show you a static picture of the game, can you really infer like what direction we're moving from? What direction the stage is moving in? It's really, really hard to tell. If I give you 2 or 4 frames, then you can start to probably like infer, oh, this thing was moving that way and this thing there. So that the same applies to neural nets. Like you need to give them a bit of context like this. So the way we're doing it right now, the key press happens here. These are the 2 frames that preceded that key press, and there is also the frame that kind of like happened after. So you have it all. You have it all. Now, if I want to look at these frames in more detail, I could. You say some pro player will open a store to sell your game recordings. Hey, maybe in a distant future, maybe. All right, so let's look at the frames individually, starting from the first one, right? So it looks a little like this. And if I keep going, you'll see the progression, right? You'll see the progression. So I go from, do you see the progression already? All right, so it was this that went, so pay attention to the player. We can kind of make out the player. So this is 100 by 100. It's actually pretty small, but you'll notice that we can still make out where the player is, and that's probably the most important thing, right? So we still have enough resolution to make out the important features like the player character, which is just the arrow. It doesn't look like an arrow anymore, but at least there is that piece of information in those images. And there's a chance that we could train our network to recognize that feature, the player, where it is. So let's see the progression of frames. Maybe it's before I died, actually, because I pressed right in this case. So it's a little interesting. So it was this, and then I pressed right when I saw this. Oh, no, it's good. It's actually good. we made it past that obstacle, and then the next opening is on the right, so you'll see what happened after I pressed right here. That one's a little weird. I don't know. I don't follow the sequence here. Of course, it's kind of hard to really try to reassemble what happened from just like 3 frames. What's up, Sadnek? What's going on? But we can do this for other sequences, like in the recordings, if you wanted to. We could do this with like anywhere. And of course, the goal would be to eventually build like a module, like I said, that can read in this information, right? That can read in this sort of information. Let's try some other one for fun. It needs to be one where it's an active key press, so something like this. I just have to find another one like this. Oops. And just swap this one out. There we go. That's our context for the left key press. Super hexagon is a little hard to just like evaluate from the frames, because you have to keep in mind that you're moving like you're moving like away from the current context, and the board is also rotating. So just looking at this and say, oh yes, that's why I pressed left, it's gonna be a little hard visually. But you can kind of see that there is a bit of a continuity to this thing, right? You can kind of see that this, like this structure is getting smaller because everything in super hexagon converges towards the middle. So you can kind of see the continuity in these frames. This is definitely the same, something that happened in a sequence. Now, if I were to like look at the frames individually like this, I could also do that and see them with a little more like detail, right? Something like this. So you can still make out the player, like I said. Good stuff. I think it would be like sufficient. Now, what if we were to try to just like collect color information? Because why not, right? Is that something that we can do easily, for example? I've never tried it because this feature is kind of fresh, so I don't know. But let's say I would remove the grayscale in the pipeline and just say like 100 by 100 and to float. And let's try that. Now, before I do this, I'm going to clear out the old data. All right. And let's try it again. I've never tried color, so I don't know. Maybe we have some sort of issue with that. We will see. So I have to wait for it to tell me that it's ready to record the game and for me to play it before I do anything. All right, start playing the game. See, there's going to be a bit of a lag there, and once we're past that lag, we're good to go. Let's press space to retry, so let's go. So I'm just going to play it. Is frame rate. Sorry, I'm trying to kind of read chat at the same time as I'm playing this. Is the framework in a stage where foundation stuff is well formed for making some unit testing? Probably some of the modules could be unit tested at this point. The thing with Serpent.AI is just it's going to be like, it's not one of those frameworks that you're going to have or piece of code that you're going to have a good time trying to unit test. I can tell you that. Because there's stuff that's happening between processes. I really think a lot of that stuff would be hard to unit test. It's a lot of num-by operations. That's not to say that we won't try, but I think there's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to be very, very difficult to unit test. Let's try to not play like total dog ass. Like, let's try to actually make an effort here. And of course, if I say that, it's going to make it worse. But I can hold up for a while. I can do it. Now, because now I would teach it to play like that, which would be kind of hilarious. Like, you have to be decent at it if you want to show it how to play. Otherwise, it's just gonna do whatever you showed it. Right. Hesitation killed me. All right, let's say this is enough. And I want to try to dump this. Now I removed the grayscale from the pipeline. I'm trying to establish, like, is it still going to work? It sure seems like it is, right? It does say I'm done, so it's done. Nice. Let's go back to the notebook and see if we have like color frames this time around. So it seems like it seems like it would be compatible with these frames. I'm gonna need to steal like some sort of like key where something happened first. So maybe like you. Oops, come on. And then I'm gonna put it in the other cell where we got all of our information. I try to see if we can get like some color context this time around. Now, color is not necessarily desirable. Like you might think, like from a human point of view, it is, and in some cases, color conveys a lot of information in a game. But it's also you're also making your mathematical space like way more complicated, right? You're tripling the amount of data essentially that you're presenting your neural network with. So you have to keep that in mind. All right, cool. Hey, look at that. It actually turns out that we have some color stuff. It's pretty cool. So can I show one individual one? Yeah, so it works with color too. And it works with color too. Now I don't know what led me to press this key in this. It might be space that I might have picked something that says, yeah, it might be space. I don't remember what I grabbed there. Is it 22? No, it's not. Shit. I'm probably not going to find it back now. God damn it. Maybe I could... I don't remember what key that was. That was probably space. If we're looking at this, it was probably space because space gets you to retry. I just don't remember what key it was that we stole from there. But yeah, no, you can have like you can have your own color images too if you want. So this thing is actually pretty flexible. It's going to respect the pipeline, like I said. The images get encrypted. What the fuck am I saying? I'm tired. They actually get compressed as PNGs. So the raw, the image like arrays, the byte arrays get compressed to PNG on the fly in that frame grabbing process, which allows us to collect a lot of gameplay and memory without like spiking the RAM. It's going to be pretty steady. My file in the end, I don't know if you guys noticed, but if we go back to, just give me a sec here, here, right? Input recording ended up being 14 megs. And I probably played it for what, like 2-3 minutes? So you can probably do the math on that and realize that even recording hours of gameplay with, you know, like with these current settings and then the input like the pipeline, the frame pipeline, you would get something that would not only fit in RAM, but also have like some sort of reasonable size on the disk. So that's pretty interesting. It's definitely interesting. I'm pretty happy with this. I don't know. It's been 3 hours. It's not a lot. Like I don't think 3 hours is a lot. But at the same time, I don't know if there's anything I can kind of get started on right now, because everything else is kind of like the next step for this. Before I release this feature, I mean, it's looking pretty good. Before I release it and I push it on GitHub and merge it into dev, I will have to test it on Windows and Mac OS. Right, so that's something I'm gonna have to do. To make sure that it still works like pretty much the same way. One thing I could probably try to do is just try the mouse thing again, just for fun, to see if it works or not with some of the time that we have right now. Yeah. Constant screen recording seems like a heavy task. How do you deal with possibly frame skippage or wrong timestamps? Wrong timestamps would not happen. Frame skippage can happen, but then again, the thing is like people get stuck on this, Andy, because they think about this thing as a sequential data set, but it's not. So if it skips frames, well, these frames are never going to make it to the game agent. They're never going to be associated with that. So I don't see how that would be like an issue. It is not meant to be a sequential thing. Even if we're missing out on observations, we're going to be training on this thing out of order. So I don't think it's a good question, but I don't think we're going to be missing out on a lot of information. Of course, like if your system struggles for whatever other reason for a moment, it may slow down the capture or something like that. But I haven't really seen that be a problem, like ever. Turns out that this is actually pretty optimized. Like we've worked on the capturing for quite a while, and that part of the framework is definitely pretty stable and optimized and fast. I'm not saying it's not possible that it would skip frames if your computer is really like under assault or something, like really like there's a lot going on. I'm not saying it's impossible, but at the same time, since we're not even like considering these things sequentially, yeah, exactly, crossbow 2, right? That's it. All right, so even if there is a bad observation in there, a bad observation is essentially just the equivalent of our reinforcement learning agent doing something stupid and getting not rewarded for it, right? So it's not that bad if there is, even if there is a bad observation in the entire thing, right? Yeah. Before you call it a new version, what's going on? What's going on? Well, calling it a new version doesn't mean I'm not gonna work on this like and release another one like in a week or something. It's not like the next version is going to be in 3 months, so let's not worry too much. I just really want to push this out, right? I'm waiting, Teddy. I'm waiting. I want to know before you call it a new version. Okay, if we capture frame and use timestamps instead of UUID, where? Do you mean like for the file names? Because that's totally something we could do. But I don't understand like what's interesting. The whole point is these. I mean, if you make a case for it, I can definitely consider it. It's definitely not hard, but I would have to see what's interesting about it. Because I have I have the frame timestamps. I do have them in the new version. But the whole point for me is that they were like the sequence would not necessarily matter. So if you can present like a case maybe for where the sequence actually matters, maybe I could use that. Yeah. Well, that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, because it can happen. That's a good point for real. It can totally happen. Let's say, like, because when you start context capture, for example, with a label, it's possible that you'll die, for example, during the game, right? And you want to remove those frames from the training set because that's technically not the right label. So that's a good point. I like that. Yeah, I do like that. Yeah, no, it makes sense. I don't know if what I said maybe. So I think you were working on the Tetris thing. So eventually you die, right? And you probably have a different context, and whatever you see is not what you're labeling these frames that you're collecting as. And what you're saying is it would be easier to find all the frames where you're dead, for example, if they were in order. Do I get that? Am I getting that right? I meant to tell you I'm doing my first day programming Zoom meeting with a CosmoQuest social media crew tomorrow. Nice. Evening. Okay. Spend most of my day tomorrow at work, prepare for it. I'm pretty pumped. Nice, Big J. Do you have a specific time? Or is it just like evening? Because I can try to make it there, but I would have to know approximately when. Because I definitely have some stuff to do tomorrow evening. But if you tell me when, maybe I can try to make my way there. Yes, exactly. Cool. Thanks, dude. Yeah, no, it makes sense. It makes sense. So the reason I was using UIDs is just because technically they're unique images, but the timestamp itself is just as unique, and it would allow some ordering. I'm not against that. Yeah. You'd probably be streaming. Yes, there's a good chance I'll be. We'll see. We'll see. The gaming stuff on Fridays is definitely not like an essential or anything, so I'll see what I want to do. Okay, so I would have to consider this as another feature, Teddy, but it's a small one, so I don't think it's a big deal. I won't do it in this feature branch. Like, we're gonna keep things organized. But yeah, that's something. I thank you for sharing that. Like actual experiences with the framework like that from other people. I love getting that. Like, so thank you for sharing that for real, because it's really hard for me. Like, I'm too familiar with the framework at this point to have like an objective viewpoint. I'm biased in some way, right? Because I built it around how I thought it should work. Uh, so it's hard sometimes for me to see like what other people mean when they say, "Hey, could it be doing this?" Like I'm like, no, because it works like no. But see, if you present a case like that, it's easy for me to see. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Post it absolutely. Do announce that like if you have it. Yep, make sure to do it. So you can feed random pairs. Yeah, yeah. That's the whole point. That's why you have a frame sequence. So of course you still want the context and you still want some time context, right? Time related context. That's why you have the frame buffer and you have a couple of frames associated with that key press. Uh, but the order that you train your model in, it doesn't have to be seen as a sequence. It doesn't really matter. I could show it a specific point in time in the game and saying the context was this and this was done and the reward was this, and it's going to use that as an observation, and then I can just show it something that's like 10 minutes later, right? And just say, hey, the visual context is this. It doesn't need to know when it happened. And if you feed it enough data like that, it doesn't really matter. The sequence itself doesn't matter. We're not trying to teach it to do things in a sequence. We're trying to see, we're trying to make it adapt to specific, like scenarios visually. So when you think about like like the let's say the Morayo thing that a lot of people are familiar with, the settling experiment that was like a couple of years back now. It was cool, and it was definitely a different time, right? So it was using a bit of genetic algorithms to control a small, not even like a deep neural net. It was just like a small neural network, like super small, like a feed forward neural net. But what it ended up learning was not transferable to other levels, right? Because it ended up learning a sequence that maximized the fitness of that genetic generation. So it's not something that's portable like that. It ended up learning a sequence that's optimal, right? So it would reject the new generations or the new, like I don't know what the other term was because I don't do a lot of genetic algorithms myself. There's something else. There's the generation, the species, I think, something like that. But it would just end up like being really really good at figuring out the sequence to maximize its fitness. And that is not portable because you're learning a sequence. It would give it the next level with whatever neural net it had like figured out, and it would do relatively bad, right? Because nothing looks the same, and all of a sudden, yeah, nothing works anymore. So that's that. Yeah, that's definitely it. Like so that's something we're looking to work differently. Like we're giving it essentially like think of the Isaac. I don't know if you were there, Andy, when we were doing the Isaac stuff. But there was something peculiar that we were doing, and people were just like, "Oh, it's just a cute thing," you know. But we were doing the flashbacks. I don't know if anyone here remembers that was here when we were doing Isaac, but there were the flashbacks, and essentially the flashbacks is sort of how you can kind of visually understand what I mean by feeding it like this disjointed information. I would just have like some flashbacks in memory, and I would just say like at some point in time, and I don't know when, Isaac saw this, right? That's it. So it's just like reliving flashbacks when we train. It's not saying, hey, this is the sequence of things that happened in this run. It's really just like flashback moment, like little memory, visual memory context, like a couple of frames, the key press if any, the reward if any, and that's it. That's your training set. So yeah, that's pretty good. Like looking pretty nice. I don't know if I want to clean this up. Perhaps like send it over to GitHub. I would have to send it over to GitHub in the PR because I'm going to probably be testing this thing on Windows off stream, and definitely Mac OS. I don't know how I'm going to figure out the Mac OS thing, but we'll figure it out. And if I can reproduce like the results like this on Windows and Mac OS, then I guess I could call it like a feature. And maybe we'll try to squeeze in whatever Teddy said for the naming, and then perhaps like call it a version and actually release like a new version for Serpent.AI, because there's a lot of good stuff in that we've done so far compared to the current dev. But yeah, no, that's pretty much it. I think I'm gonna commit. It's been a shorter one today, but in terms of streaming, but I don't think like I said I can really start on something else. I just don't see it. So I think it's gonna have to, instead of just stretching this, it might be wiser to call it there. And I'm gonna do my testing and see if we can close up the feature like that. But we have it, and you're gonna be able to look at the code if we want it. But the code itself is actually way simpler now. So it's a big improvement. Of course, this thing still looks like a bit of a monolith, right? We could refactor this a bit, but I like to finish this by with the refactor. Not do it right now, but this is getting definitely solid there. I can see this being useful. And of course, like in the coming streams, I would say, like in the coming streams, in terms of you know, like the next 2 weeks, there's a good chance that we're gonna even like leverage this information to try to build models. So it might be interesting. We're gonna start doing a bit of machine learning with this feature. It's gonna be fun to work with that. Yeah. You iterated the version number by 10, call it a night early, and enjoy another Twitch. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's probably better to, like, I used to, I like to have a bit of a guideline, BJ. I won't lie. Like, I like to say, like, I do about 4 hours on weekdays and 6 on weekends. But on some days, you'll just go longer. And on some days, to be honest, it's not because I'm tired or I want to do something else. It's more like, hey, it's actually literally a good point to end it there, because, like, we just closed up a feature. And I don't have the time necessarily to commit to another one. And for the times I end early like this, there's probably 2 more times where I end like I go into like extra time. So I'm not gonna feel too bad about it. I'm gonna commit this to GitHub, like I said. So if you want to check this out, you can always go to the repo, Serpent.AI, right? Like this, Serpent.AI, and Serpent.AI. There is also exclamation mark GitHub that you do in chat, and you'll see it in the pull request, because I'm not ready to merge this in dev yet, but there is this first working Serpent record command Linux PR, and everything basically that I commit to input capture gets appended there, so you can see it. Right? Andy's saying, you ever plan to do some practical framework application on streams with educational note? Yeah, absolutely. So I have to balance, Andy. I have to balance the dev of the framework itself. But once I make a big push like this, it might be a nice time to work on an experiment too, right? So I'm not always going to be doing dev for the framework. I might also use it and build experiments. And we did that in the past, right? It's just that we have to choose some good times, some good timings to do this. So I was shipping this big feature, the recording, not the time to run an experiment. Things are changing, new things are coming into play. So not the right time, but eventually, yes, we'll go back to that sort of stuff. Yeah. Work on Isaac on some meme game to bump the viewer count. Hey, that's not why I do it, man. Crossbow, you know that. Like, viewer counts, they'll come and go. That's just the way it is. Like, I'm not doing, like, I'm never gonna live off Twitch, so there's no real point in me for letting me to try to just, like, you know, like keep focusing on boosting the counts and everything. That's not my thing. It's not why I do it. Can have just as much fun with like 10 people than 100 people. But yes, to be fair, however, just to be fair, because you saw that Crossbow, I think, with Isaac, like it does attract a lot of attention. People love that sort of shit when we run the experiments. So for sure, it is a thing. All right. The Twitch Prime free game they just dropped. They just dropped a new one. Let's see. What's that? What's the title? I don't see anything else, so I probably already redeemed it. I don't see it, so I probably already redeemed it. What's the game? Making a living on Twitch is like becoming a professional. It can be an income source. Oh yeah, it's beer. It's beer money. It's also other stuff, right? For me, it's a nice way to talk about the framework, get people introduced to it. People see me like add stuff. They can give feedback. I think it's a great way to do that sort of stuff, right? Headlander. Why don't I don't see it? Did it just like drop right now? Because it's not in my list of Prime rewards. I don't see it. Oh, maybe it just dropped right now. Yeah, I refreshed and it's there now. All right, cool. I got it too. All right, thank you. Thank you for telling me. Yeah. I guess I didn't refresh my tab or something during the day. All right, nice. So I'm gonna be pushing this to GitHub. Like I said, there is a command for this, right? Oops, GitHub. So if you want to see that stuff, we have our framework there. Like I said, it's gonna be in the PR until we merge it into dev. GitHub is kind of like the central place for this for sure. We also have the Discord where there's a healthy mix of people that are watching the stream and also people that are coming from just like the project itself. So it's a bit of a collision between the people that come from GitHub and just like discover the framework from other sources and the community, like the stream community. But yeah, that's gonna be it. I can check if someone's live. I guess Kit is live, but I think we can just call it there. If you want to see someone, probably not gonna raid or anything, but if you want to see someone, there's a good chance he's still live. It's always a good time if he is. Let me check real quick. Team. Oh yeah, I can talk about the team real quick. Really quick. See, Kit is live. That's good stuff. Brain Bites. That's our team. All right. We may seemingly like be unrelated when you know about our streams, but we all share like one common desire on Twitch is it's just to surface and promote a bit educational content, like on Twitch. So well, educational in a sense, like it's not just like a formal like lecture or anything, but definitely like stuff that you can make your brain like do a trick or two. So you're entertained, you're watching this, you're having a good time, but you also perhaps like learning a thing or two. So that's kind of like our common goal. We all tackle different topics. I highly recommend you check out these folks. They're good people. Yeah, edutainment. Yeah, absolutely, edutainment. Good people. You can find the list if you just like scroll down below the player. You'll see the team, Brain Bites team, and you'll land up on that page. Right? So that's gonna be it for now. Tomorrow I might normally I don't stream on Fridays, but I did start like maybe playing games sometimes just to relax a bit on Friday. So we'll see if I want to do that. But the real one that's gonna matter is the one on Saturday. So we're gonna keep working on the framework on Saturday, right? So I will likely see you then. Thank you for watching. Thank you for follows. I did get a subscription too. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. And yeah, I'll see you next time.